You are now entering Video Village,
where we mark the centenary of the 24 Turnip Wars. Should we start with the Sam's Lexicentre?
Let's do it.
Okay. Let's.
Samuel. Words. Phrases. Sam's Lexicentre.
Center.
So this was by request. This was by your request.
Ooh.
Actually.
Was it?
Yes. We were watching The Good Wife, and there was a relationship at the end of The Good Wife, and you pointed out a trend.
This is coming back to me now, yeah.
Yes, okay. I'm calling that trend finality bias. Finality bias. And that is the phenomenon at the end of a television series whereby characters, relationships, plot threads, etc., that would otherwise fall into the category of short-term are afforded a greater significance because the series is coming to an end.
Yes.
It can also apply to the practice of bringing multiple disparate elements unconnected to the show's end game, quote-unquote, to an end purely because the series is ending.
Yeah, just kind of like wrapping everything up. Like Happy Valley kind of did that, where it literally like everything got an ending.
Right. The Shield is my go-to example, where Dutch, a character who was famously unsuccessful with women, there is that suggestion in the finale that he may actually have found his future bride or whatever.
Yeah, which I think if you know your celebrities outside of the show, that actress is his actual wife.
It's his actual wife, yeah. But that has nothing to do with the show ending.
No.
But because the show is ending, they're giving us a little hint at something. So finality bias.
Samuel. Words. Phrases. Sam's Lexicentre.
Center. Okay, so coming up.
I catch Jordan and y'all up on some things.
And we review Uglies,
KAOS Season 1,
The Crow,
Red Rooms,
COLIN from Accounts,
and Evil. I'm inflicting another catch-up on your ass.
What? No, we're already caught up, Sam.
We're not.
How can we not be caught up?
Such is the nature of time that you don't just catch up once. You know?
Well,
the nature of friendship would be over,
that
wouldn't
needs to change, doesn't it?
It would be nice if friendships were just, let's have a catch-up, and then that's it. You're briefed. Like, you're briefed on that person.
That's what being an adult is, right?
Well,
like,
no,
there's actually nothing to catch you up on, even though I haven't seen you for 2 years.
Well, being an adult, is actually meeting for the catch-up and not saying anything meaningful to each other.
Yeah. Because
what do you do? There's so much time, it's arbitrary. It's like, oh yeah, like 6 months ago, this thing happened.
Yeah.
Well, why are you telling me? Yeah, that's why you need to see
because I lost my leg. I thought you'd think it was important.
Come back to me when it's both. Okay, so the first thing is called Hold Your Breath. Have you heard of this?
Actually, that just sounds like I gasped.
It sounds like I know what you were going for.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, Jordan, don't.
Okay.
Like, don't do that. We need you in good health.
Okay.
Have you heard of it?
I haven't.
Okay. It's a Dust Bowl horror film.
Okay.
That subgenre. Yeah, basically it's set in Oklahoma during the dust storm period, the Dust Bowl in the 30s. And Sarah Paulson plays a character who has 2 daughters. The husband's gone away. And there's this mythical figure called the Grey Man that may or may not be haunting them.
Okay.
Sarah Paulson is trying. Ebel Musbakrak, who plays this kind of healer, he's trying. The visuals are dull, as you might expect, for a Dust Bowl film. There's a lot of coughing. And it's in that school of American history horror.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? When they do like horrors about slavery, it's like, it's saying something about American history.
Yeah.
Consequently, you'd be forgiven for thinking it's saying something.
Right.
But it isn't.
Okay.
That's it. It's rubbish.
You must not have liked it if you were like, I'm going to catch you up on this thing that I hated.
Yeah.
You were like,
these aren't all recommendations.
Yeah, no, but you were like, I'm going to catch you up on some stuff. This is shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, these aren't all recommendations. Don't go thinking that.
Right.
Yeah, and apparently people have been waiting like 4 years for it because it was written in this script lab. It's like, oh yeah, we're making that, but it's taken 4 years to get to us.
Right.
And it's a disappointment.
Okay.
It was originally called Dust, which is a much better and much worse title. Dust. Okay, the next thing. Humanist vampire seeking consenting suicidal person.
Okay.
Heard of this one?
I haven't heard of this one.
Okay.
But that title, is it going in the direction I think it is?
I don't know. Where do you think it's going?
Comedy.
Yeah, kind of. Half comedy. It's basically about a teenage girl who is a vampire, born to a family of vampires, but she develops empathy at a young age.
Okay.
And they kind of try to indoctrinate her by showing her videos of people being killed, and she reacts badly to them, like a human would.
Yeah.
Like, this is a problem.
Okay.
And her fangs don't develop when they should. And basically she is like a vegan vampire. Like, I don't want to kill people.
Right.
She has to drink blood, but she won't kill people.
Okay.
So she's kind of sent off to live with her cousin, who'll show her the ways of being a vampire.
Right.
It's a French-Canadian film. It's a nice, simple premise. It's nicely, moodily shot with these bluish and reddish lighting states. Vampirism is really just the decoration. It's mostly concerned with adolescent isolation, ennui, and the melancholy coming of age. It's about moody teenagers that listen to old 60s records and probably like French films, with an outcast teen friendship, maybe relationship, at its centre. The precedents are legion, but to name a few, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, Heathers, Rushmore, Submarine, Moonrise Kingdom. Given the subject, Let the Right One In is an obvious poll, but this is also an indie comedy with a dark sense of humour.
Yeah, is there any What We Do in the Shadows in this? Because
No.
That's like the big vampire thing at the moment, right?
No, no, that's a comedy.
Yeah.
This is light-hearted indie. There are laughs,
Yeah.
but it's more like Perks of Being a Wallflower, I think, is the best tonal kind of match for it. The story is a twist on puberty and parental expectations and early sexual experiences. It's quite Buffy-esque in that respect, but tonally discreet. Harold and Maude are the grandparents of all these shoegaze children, really. It reminded me of the kind of films that budding cinephiles discover when they're 16, 17, getting into the Smiths and falling in love with Anna Karina. The main character is in that same aesthetic school as Wednesday Addams. You know, Christina Ricci, Winona Ryder, those pale Tim Burton princesses.
Yeah.
40 years ago, if it was English language, you'd cast Winona Ryder and Johnny Depp in the lead roles, yeah. By the way, give it a minute until the English language remake. It'll happen.
Yeah, probably.
It will be
with General Ortega, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
You beat me to it. But yeah, it would be completely unnecessary, but it's an eminently portable premise. And I can see studios thinking, yeah, stick Jenna Ortega and like Finn Wolfhard or someone like that in there. See the bucks roll in. It will appeal to goth guys and girls that like books, or at least having books, and enjoy the appearance of not enjoying anything.
Right.
But it's a good film. But it's an hour and a half, in and out, probably a one and done, but check it out.
Yeah, okay.
It's decent. In Restless Dreams, the music of Paul Simon.
Okay.
It's what it says on the tin, really. It's a documentary, two-part documentary. About the music of Paul Simon.
Indeed.
Alex Gibney did it. He also did Wise Guy, The Sopranos documentary. And he's pretty much the preeminent American documentarian filmmaker.
Okay.
If you name a critically acclaimed documentary in the last 10 years, odds are he directed it.
Right.
He's very good, and he's on a roll this year. And if you're interested in Paul Simon, you should watch it. If you're not, there's probably not much for you, other than just the general kind of creation of art and music and what it was like in the 60s and 70s. But you kind of need to be into Paul Simon, and I happen to be.
Okay.
So I would recommend it.
Is it the type of documentary where someone that isn't into Paul Simon?
That's what I'm saying. No,
Okay.
I think you probably have to be into him, but you might be into him and not know it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Do you think that's because of the documentary or because of its subject matter, where it's kind of not really accessible to people? That
it's subject matter. The documentary is very well made.
Yeah.
Alex Gibney is not like a Brett Morgan where he really kind of breaks, you know, how do I do a completely different style of documentary? He just makes documentaries that are very, you know, like sometimes like we'll do the Wise Guy thing next episode, but you know, he sits in a recreation of Melfi's office. But that's kind of the furthest he'll go in terms of artifice.
Yeah.
But it is good.
Okay.
Salem's Lot.
Right.
Have you heard, I presume you've heard of this.
I've heard of Salem's Lot. I don't know if I've heard
of the new one.
Yeah.
So, based on a Stephen King book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not an Eminem lyric then.
It is, but that is based on the Stephen King book.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I cannot crawl in Salem's Lot. Fail me not. It's maybe the only opportunity that I got.
Mom Spaghetti.
Why? Don't be that guy. Herod the Mom Spaghetti.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece. That song is rocky.
It is a very good song.
Yeah.
I do love that song.
Okay. Yeah, so Salem's Lot is based on a Stephen King novel. It was famously made into a miniseries in the late 70s, I think. 79, that feels right. And then another miniseries in 2004 with Rob Lowe. It's the blueprint for things like Midnight Mass. Salem's Lot is like the inspiration for Midnight Mass. This is profoundly lightweight in comparison.
Okay.
Stephen King does like a bit of infanticide.
Okay, all right.
Lewis Pullman, who's the lead, is looking more and more like his father, Bill Pullman. The original miniseries has a scene that's cited by many of a certain generation as one of the creepiest they've ever seen. Are you familiar with this scene?
I don't know.
It's a young kid in bed, and his friend who's been turned into a vampire comes to visit him at night, and he's flying outside the window like, let me in. And it's a very drawn-out sequence where this kid is just like creepily hovering, and then comes into his room, and the music is swelling, and it is creepy.
Okay.
And I can see if you were young watching that, like that was your terrifying childhood experience, with film. They do the scene again in the remake. It's nowhere near as creepy.
Okay.
Nowhere near. There's quite the reliance on jump scares. You never quite settle into it. It's hard to know what to care about, and when they clarify what you should care about, you don't. There's a dull uniformity to events unfolding. There's no life in it. And never any real sense of surprise that vampires exist, which is a big bugbear of mine.
Yeah.
It's like they just get used to it instantly. It's like, give it a minute.
Yeah.
Just give it a minute.
Yeah.
It uses Donovan's hurdy-gurdy man in what's intended to be a creepy context, but Zodiac has the rights to that as far as I'm concerned. You know that song? Oh, with the hurdy-gurdy man singing songs.
Well, hold on. That point will become relevant in a later review. Okay. So keep that in the back of your mind.
Okay. The miniseries, the original one, was too long for me. It's like 3 hours. It's long. Maybe even 4. This is really rather rubbish. Stephen King novels in general tend to be eminently adaptable, but they haven't cracked this yet. And I don't think we need another Salem's Lot, so maybe the book is just the best expression and leave it at that.
Okay.
And then I have a little double bill, because they're both films I saw today, basically, but also they share some things in common. They're both mostly set in one location.
Okay.
So one is called It's What's Inside. So it's a kind of interesting premise. It's these friends meet up at this house on kind of the eve of the wedding of one of the people there. And they have an old friend shop that they haven't seen in years who's become like a tech guru in Silicon Valley. And he shows up with a device where you put electrodes on your temples and you can swap bodies without anybody else connected to the thing.
Right, okay.
So it's a parlor. They do it as a parlor game.
Yeah.
But then, of course, it doesn't go exactly as planned.
Okay.
Now, that sounds interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The thing, the characters are really annoying. They're all millennial, really annoying characters.
What was the horror film from last year with the hand? Like, you hold the hand and a demon takes possession of you.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it was like Australian horror, I think, or something. Like,
is that not the one that was made by the YouTuber?
Yeah.
It is, yeah. Why did you have to do that?
Is it Talk to Me?
Yeah.
Talk to Me, yeah.
I think it's called Talk to Me.
Is it that kind of...
No, this isn't the horror.
Okay, but I mean, like, the context of that is that it's sort of an analogy for drugs, isn't it? Because they take it to like a house party and everyone's like having a turn with the hand, and it's like
no, this isn't an analogy really.
Okay,
it's the premise, and then obviously the central couple are having problems, so it really revolves around them because they go into other bodies, and then like maybe the guy tries kissing somebody. It's all the things you would expect. It demands that you keep track constantly. There's a lot of characters, and none of them are played by famous people.
Okay.
So, they're all new to you. It's like, right, okay, what's his name? And he's supposed to be him right now. And no, he lied about that, didn't he? And I found I didn't want to keep track of it.
Okay.
It does all the things you'd expect it to. It has very arch lighting. There's a film that we'll be reviewing next week that has pretty annoying cinematography, a lot of tube lights.
Right.
I'm not saying this is in the same league, but it's just as artificial, and needlessly so. The premise is unreal enough. The visuals didn't need to be too. It's typically the kind of thing that you would enjoy more than me.
Okay.
But in this case, I'm not sure.
Right.
But it's worth giving a try. But I think the characters, you won't care about the characters.
Okay.
And if you don't care about the characters, you won't care about
There's nothing left.
There's nothing there.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
And things will be different, is the other film.
All right.
Another interesting premise, it's about a brother and sister that have pulled off a heist. The hole up in a house in the middle of nowhere, and there's this room that they go into, and it basically transports them back in time. And they know about that. So it's like, right, well, we'll kind of hide out in the past for a week, then we'll come back and see what's happening. And then when they're in the past, someone starts communicating with them, and shit spirals out of control.
Right.
It's very Shane Carruthey. So he did things like Primer and Upstream Colour, like proper, intelligent time travel stuff, like figuring out how that works. Quite loopery as well, especially with the farmhouse setting. The characters aren't annoying here. It does demand that you keep up to, and your mood will dictate whether you do.
Okay.
But considering that it's very timey-wimey in an intelligent way that cares about making sense, it's actually relatively straightforward. I liked it. I did not love it, but I would recommend it.
Okay. So one of those things that you respect it more than you like it because its attention to its own rules and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I definitely wouldn't dissuade anyone from watching it.
Okay.
That's my catch-up.
Right.
Okay. Should we do some reviews?
Let's do it.
Let's review Uglies.
I've changed my mind.
You didn't have to watch this. I told you about 10 times you don't have to watch this.
Yeah, but...
And I knew you would anyway.
It's one of those things where, I mean, you look at it as an audience member and you go, oh, I absolutely don't want to watch that.
Yeah.
But then you look at it as someone that's kind of interested in film and someone that, talks about films, on the podcast, and you go, oh, well, I kind of have to see,
Well, we'll come back to that point. But yeah. Okay, so this is directed by McG, the genius behind the Charlie's Angels duology.
Right.
Yeah, the Cameron Diaz one. Terminator Salvation, This Means War, 3 Days to Kill, and a bunch of awful films you haven't heard of. But you did see Family Switch, didn't you?
I saw Family Switch, yeah.
Yeah, last year?
I think that's when it came out, so yeah, I would have seen it last year.
So this is YA lore-dumping nonsense.
Yeah.
Where everything has to have its own in-world name.
Yeah.
The premise is that when you turn 16, you're given futuristic cosmetic surgery to become a pretty. And yes, that's pretty as an adjective. That's not an adjective, a capital P noun. And this is what equalizes humanity to avoid war.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah, because humanity was at the brink of extinction.
The brink of extinction. And then we're but now we can all be pretty.
Yeah.
And,
but if we all wanted to fuck, we wouldn't want to fight. So, exactly.
Right. It probably thinks it's anti-fascist in that Starship Troopers way. But if anything, it's actually anti-communist. Anti-Maoist, really. With the Great Leap Forward in China, they made everyone uniform and androgynous. You couldn't tell men and women apart, basically. But making everyone beautiful is just another way of stamping out beauty. But the film isn't clever enough to do anything with any of that.
Also, it's the type of beauty where I don't know whether it's supposed to be hyperbolic because the film doesn't approve of it, but the quote-unquote pretty people in this are not pretty. They are plasticky and artificial.
Yeah, they're filters, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just anti-authoritarian in that vague blanket post-1984 way.
Yeah.
The capital U Uglies, they rebel against the oppressive society. They live in the smoke. So you have the metropolis populated with the gorgeous bastards, and the smoke, which is nature and true. They're the Na'vi, the Native Americans, the one that isn't Cobra Kai. Unsurprisingly, the people that play the Uglies aren't.
No.
They are, however, with the exception of the lead, racial minorities. There are noble people, of course, that reject the superficial and prize personality. So it's understandable in this day and age why you'd cast a Rainbow Coalition in these roles. But there's no getting around the fact that your Uglies are all black and brown and Asian. And it's a bit of a dilemma for them there, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, they kind of lefted themselves into oblivion there. Laverne Cox plays the Dr. Dictator.
Yeah, this is the one exception to the rule, isn't it?
Yeah, so the film isn't going full racial essentialist.
Yeah.
She talks about how surgery is the great leveller so that we can become our perfect selves. Now, we can assume that the film is criticising that notion, of course. So casting Laverne Cox is either some weird irony, which is far above this film. If you don't know, by the way, I don't know why you wouldn't. Laverne Cox is a transgender actress. A dig, and it's not going to be that, is it?
No.
A way to ward off the trans lobby, who might construe its anti-surgery message as anti-trans. Or they just don't connect any of those dots.
Yeah.
And I suspect the latter.
I suspect the latter as well, but I mean, that conversation is still being had around this film, isn't it? It's it's an anti-trans thing. Is it anti-trans? Would you say it's anti-trans?
I will come to that very shortly.
Okay.
Yeah, incidentally, if you did want to make the argument as a conservative that the film unknowingly critiques transitioning, you can't really, because the transitions are mandated by the state, not individually elective.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, because that's the big contention, isn't it? It's we don't want the state paying for and
well, I'm saying
transitioning
this has become part of the culture war, obviously. But if a conservative did want to say, I will often say, a liberal filmmaker has kind of unwittingly made the opposite point. This is not that, because it's not this is the state saying you have to have surgery. It's not people that feel they are something, it's mandated. Everyone has to have it done. But yes, we can still count on everyone getting it wrong. So I want to quote something from the rap. The way the movie actually reads is as a stiff, soulless allegory for a terrible future, where people who want to change their appearance to match how they feel inside are accused of grotesque villainy, or depicted as tragic victims of social brainwashing. What the hell even is this?
Right.
So firstly, like I said, they don't have a choice. They just have some say in the specifics. So like, oh, can you get rid of the wart on my nose and that kind of thing. Secondly, this isn't gender reassignment. It's a surgical glow-up.
Yeah.
And finally, tragic victims of social brainwashing? Well, in large part, yes. But
right.
For fuck's sake, isn't it really all just a roundabout way of promoting the platitude to teenage girls that beauty is on the inside?
Well, I mean, that would bring us naturally to the ending, wouldn't it, of the film?
Okay.
I know you were kind of on a roll there. I don't know if I'm sort of derailing your train of thought at all.
No, go on.
Yeah, spoilers, I guess. The end of the film. Yeah, no, I mean, don't give a shit.
You know the premise, you know how it ends.
Yeah, exactly.
You know
well, no, that's the thing. So it did kind of take me by surprise, the ending.
Okay.
Because at the end, yeah, they've kind of...
Well, it's the first of intended many, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's based on a book series of which there are many novels.
Okay.
So if that was just the ending, then yeah, I get it. But it's
which I think it will be. I can't imagine.
No, I think it will be as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it intended to set up a franchise.
But anyway, yeah. So they kind of they take the fight to the city.
Yeah.
Because the main character is sent to kind of the smoke.
Yeah.
As like an agent of the city. It's like, oh, we're not going to give you the surgery that you crave, but if you like show us where all the rebels are, then we'll give you like exactly what you want.
Yeah. I just want to re-stress as well that I know I said it's YA dumping, law dumping nonsense, and it is. But that is what this is like. You have to imagine this as Hunger Games, Divergent. It's one of those films.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of 20-something sort of playing teenagers that are all very attractive.
Yeah. No, it even looks like those films.
No, it does.
It's actually, I've got in one of my notes, I wonder if like Netflix, and I suppose like Hollywood in general, if you count Netflix in that, whether they just have like a shared folder in the cloud called like...
YA.
Yeah, YA city assets, or YA like forest, and they just like drag and drop. Because I was like watching it thinking, I've seen this city before.
Yeah.
I've seen this exact like location before. That tree. I wonder how many times I've seen that specific tree in all of like the films that I've watched.
Like tween-age dystopia.
Yeah.
That would be the folder, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Which is not the type of thing you want to be thinking when you're watching. It's like, I wonder how many times I've seen that digital tree before.
Well, now that we're thinking a bit more about it, like dystopia is very prominent in YA literature because teenagers think the world is going to hell.
Yeah.
And things can't get better. And if it is going to get bad, I'd like to be one of the people to make it better. So it's interesting now that it would be about beauty standards.
Yes.
Which it does feel quite tame compared to some of the other stuff.
Yeah, because they kind of shoehorn some other shit in there, don't they?
It does start to involve people are killed and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, because they talk about like, oh, the survival rate isn't actually that good. And they're not just manipulating your looks, they're also like manipulating your behavior. There are like lesions on the brain that come about because of surgery. Then there's this whole thing about like, oh, there's this flower that you think is actually like cleaning the environment, but it turns out it's actually destroying like the ecosystem.
Lore.
Yeah, and that flower like doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. It's just because when she goes on this like big quest to find the Uglies, it leads her to this field full of this like white flower, and she lies down to like have a sleep.
Yeah.
And then she's woken up by the field burning around her.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this isn't... I've heard of a warm welcome, but like, this probably isn't a good first impression for her.
Yeah.
Considering that she's still kind of on the city side at this point.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking as well, like,
but then I was just going to say, but then afterwards they're like, oh, actually the flower is evil. That's why we burnt the field down, even though you were in it.
The flower's evil, the poppy field. Yeah, well, I was going to say, it's interesting that it's about beauty standards and like that's what the young people today are. But this isn't written by a young person, obviously. The books are written by an adult human male.
Yeah.
And it just kind of gives that impression of cynicism of, it's going to that folder of, YA tropes.
Yeah.
Just do one of those, like take an adjective, make it a noun, groups of people, love for one boy, but then love for another boy. Like, it's all those things, and it's engineered, and just taking the theme of beauty standards, it's engineered to appeal to young people on Instagram and that kind of thing. And it's like, oh, it's so profound, but it's... No, they just clicked and dragged across all the themes, and they just changed that one thing. Because all that they are... Hunger Games, it's like, oh, it's battle royale. It's they hunt each other.
Yeah.
Divergent, what's that? It's their personalities, right?
Yes,
Personality types. Yeah, it's just like everything else the same, but change that one set decoration above it all. Yeah, it's just cynical. You can't imagine the guy who wrote this, like, his heart was in it.
No. No, I don't think that. Because, she kind of integrates herself into the rebels, ends up actually, like, really liking it.
Of course.
But then the people from the city come and they kind of, like, capture everyone and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then the film is ending with like, they're going to destroy the smoke, their home and everything like that. But they have, like, this formula that if they put it in the machine, then it'll make people, it'll like, stop people from losing their autonomy.
Right.
And because, like, that's part of the problem with the surgery is that people kind of get assimilated into this, like...
Yeah, automaton.
Yeah. So she's, like... Because one of her friends has been made pretty and she's kind of lost her, like, autonomy and everything.
Yeah.
But they need to test whether it actually works. So the main character's like, I will be the test subject. I will nobly sacrifice myself to see if, like, I can be pretty and still have independent thought. And she does.
Yeah.
That's, like, the big... Like, the end of the film is, like, the beautiful version, quote unquote, of the main character looking out over the city with her, like, all of her mental faculties intact. So I guess the message is actually, oh, you should be pretty, but also, like... pretty on the inside too?
I think maybe it's like she's done that to install herself as a sleeper agent for the rebels.
Because to me it looked like she got everything she wanted with no consequences.
No, I think the idea is they're setting up for the sequels that she's now the rebels person on the inside.
Okay.
She's Matt Damon in The Departed,
Right.
But I mean, it's not unique to this film, but the film I always think of is Beastly, which is, it's about an ugly boy, but it's just Alex Pettyfer with, like, tattoos on his face or something like that. Or like in Friends, or like those big American sitcoms with these beautiful people who are stick thin. Like, God, I'm getting so fat this month. And like, there's not a fucking ounce of fat on your body.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. Like, really, you can't find like one ugly kid.
Yeah.
And how much more would that mean to its, target audience even?
Yeah. Also, what's the line with dystopian, like, fiction like this? What's the line of believability, do you think?
Well, in where do you cross that line?
Yeah, because there's always this...
Well, the title credits.
In this case. Well, yeah, this film was fucked from the off, because I think 10 minutes in, I was like, all right, I don't believe this world for a second.
Yeah.
And the reason that happened was because, like, it can't just be like the modern world, but... there's like patrols and there's a curfew, and there always has to be like all of the technology of that world is completely over-engineered.
Yeah.
There's a moment where after she goes to meet her friend on the roof, she kind of sneaks back into her room, and she, like, the voice, the computer that kind of runs the whole city or whatever, she's like, okay, give me a toothbrush pill. And the computer goes, here's the toothbrush pill. And she swallows a pill.
Yeah.
I was like, hang on. You can currently get a chewable toothbrush from a service station for like a couple of quid.
Okay.
Why is the world created this pill that brushes your teeth when you swallow it?
Well,
she doesn't even chew the pill. She swallows it, and somehow that cleans her teeth.
Let's slow down a bit.
Okay.
I don't know there's chewable toothbrush.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know what that is.
Well, it's just like there's like those little you had them in like bowling alleys and stuff. Like they were filled with sweets. These little globes. You put a coin in, you turn it, and it like spits out sweets. Yeah. There's a similar mechanism in like service stations where if you're like on the road,
a truck driver or whatever,
you just get like a little chewable toothbrush in a machine that you can just buy, and you chew on it.
Chewable toothbrush. Okay. Well, I didn't know about that.
Okay.
But your point is taken. But also, I feel like not that satisfaction is at the top of the dystopian's priorities, but if you had a pill that brushed your teeth, people brush their teeth not really not for dental hygiene, but because it feels shit when you don't brush your teeth.
Yeah.
And you want to brush your teeth. You want to get the grime out.
Yeah.
And I feel like a pill just doesn't really achieve that.
Yeah, and because I think my contention with it is, well, how does swallowing it clean my teeth? My teeth aren't. My teeth are in my mouth. I've just swallowed the pill away from my mouth.
Yeah.
So what's happening?
It pumps up some vapor that then cleans your teeth.
What? Just clean your teeth.
I know. Yeah. Well, I think all these cities, they're kind of modelled after. Like, I always think of like Coruscant in the Star Wars prequels.
Okay.
Flying cars and the same types of buildings. That kind of thing. Yeah, and orangey sky. That vibe.
Well, yeah, that's how long it took me to be like...
Oh, okay. I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I wasn't enjoying myself these 10 minutes that I was watching it, but now I just don't buy into this world at all.
Yeah.
It's
over... what's the right word? Like over-innovation kind of thing. Yeah, shooting past... Yeah, we don't need that.
Because you're just thinking like, oh, it's the future. Technology would be more advanced.
Yeah.
How do I show that? Oh, you swallow a pill and that brushes your teeth.
Yeah.
Not stopping to think for a moment, well, that's not even practical.
Yeah, I think there are just some things that kind of we've learned by now. That we thought we'd have flying cars and have a jetpacks and all that kind of...
Yeah.
We mostly kind of don't want those things, really.
Yeah.
Not just because they're expensive to build and would be ridiculously expensive to buy, but just... Yeah, they're cool to see someone do, or like if you have one go, but you don't really want a jetpack. Yeah, it's not something you want. And it's when you see people in the future that take pills for food.
Yeah.
We actually like eating food.
Yeah, I kind of don't want that taken away from me.
Yeah, you want Chinese and a pill.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, we live in Wales, South Wales, and I think it was last year, they introduced a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit on, like, most residential streets. And that's just, like, the current world. Can you imagine how, like, over-regulated the skies would be if they were flying cars?
I know. I always think it's ridiculous. They're just flying anywhere they want.
Yeah.
No way would that work.
No.
Because trust me, in the future, there will still be litigation.
Yes.
There will still be lawyers. There will always be lawyers.
Yeah.
Unless Palestine gets its way. Anyway. That was both anti-Semitic. Yeah. All that said, if you did have Chinese in a pill, that'd be the best overdose ever, wouldn't it? If you want to kill yourself, just touch 5 or 6. Yeah, it's run-of-the-mill, annoying, derivative claptrap. Some teenage girls will love it, and dare I say, with all the death of civilization angst the statement carriers, some women too. Most film critics are now self-elected. They don't write for newspapers, they have YouTube channels. And I can't deny my distaste for that. I kind of like gated expertise. So yes, we are part of the problem, we acknowledge that. But also, what website or publication is going to give us a platform? Just to say that when I call us film critics or TV critics, it's with that in mind. But we are. I watch everything, you're not far behind, and we really think about what we're consuming and what we want to talk about and what we want to say about it, and we have a solid knowledge base on our subject. The work that goes into this podcast is work. You don't even know. And this isn't an arbitrary pang for status or a defence against referring to ourselves as critics. I'm saying it because being a film critic, and I will get more comfortable saying that, is the only context in which I would conceivably see Uglies. Frankly, I shouldn't have watched this. I shouldn't have really known what it was.
No.
I shouldn't have known it existed.
Yeah.
It's not aimed at me. But then again, there are plenty of films that aren't aimed at me that I do like. It's really rubbish.
Yeah.
Really rubbish.
Yeah, there's... I again, like, not being the target audience, I'm sure it doesn't help. But I really don't see what's redeeming about this.
No.
Because, I mean, you introduced it as like, oh, it's YA nonsense. There's plenty of good YA nonsense that you could just watch instead. I don't know if the Hunger Game films or the Divergent films or any of those are actually, like, it's good on their own merit.
It's basically been a gradual deterioration. Harry Potter remains the apex.
Yeah.
The Hunger Games, like, a couple of them are decent, and then everything after, just bad. Yeah, those two kind of did it, and that's all we need. Like, if you got Harry Potter, you don't need anything else. Honestly, you don't. And I'm not, like, a Potterhead, but they are great. They really are. Like, that world and those stories, they are great. You don't need anything else, because they are for children, ideally. So, when you're a grown man or grown woman, in this case, don't watch Uglies. Watch a proper film. Watch a film that's meant for adults. Anything else?
No, it's... stay away from
Stay away. Okay, KAOS, Season 1. KAOS, which is the Welsh for cheese, and it's hard to unknow that and unhear that.
Exactly, yeah. It doesn't help our case, does it?
No.
Yeah, it's like KAOS. Because I can't stop calling it KAOS now.
KAOS, yeah.
Like, even just seeing it written down, because it's spelled KAOS.
Yeah.
I just see KAOS.
KAOS.
Even though the Welsh spelling is, what like C-A?
C-A-W-S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's KAOS.
KAOS, yeah.
KAOS Season 1.
But if you do KAOS, it's not like Cow Season 1.
Yeah.
I'd watch a show that was that.
It's Cow.
Right, okay. So let me just get what I want, because you've seen more of it than me.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly a muso, but shows like this all high energy and fast-paced editing and all that. They tend to utilize a lot of songs as part of the dynamic presentation.
This is what I was referring to earlier when I said, like, hold on to that point about music.
Okay.
So I'll see what you're going to say, and then I'll add to.
So there's not much respect for them, is there? So people use ABBA. There's ABBA in the first episode with Abandon, and that's, they're the poppiest of pop groups. That's its own thing, whatever. But don't fear the Reaper.
I've got a little list here.
Okay, I don't know if I like the casual employment of classic songs.
Yeah.
Only there's no sense of having earned them, is what it is.
Yeah.
So go on, what's on the list?
Okay, this is by no means the full list.
Yeah.
But this is just a few that I thought were worth writing down.
Okay.
Money for Nothing by Dire Straits.
Yeah.
Praise You by Fatboy Slim.
Yeah.
Don't Fear the Reaper by the Blue Oyster Cult. Oh, What a Beautiful Morning from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Gimme 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 by ABBA. Over the Rainbow by Judy Garland. Figure It Out by Royal Blood. That one's particularly egregious because, I would say that it's a very shallow soundtrack because these are all big songs that a lot of people already have a pre-existing relationship with. But their application is also shallow as well.
Yeah,
that song, Figure It Out by Royal Blood, that's the song that plays out episode 7.
Okay.
When they figure out what one of the main characters' prophecies actually means.
Right.
That's like the big thing they play the show. It's like, fucking really figure it out when the characters figure something out. That's the level we're operating on.
But also it just suggests there's no consistent voice with the soundtrack.
Yeah, and I mean that's not...
It's not a problem in and of itself.
Yeah.
But it's clearly, it's just like, again, it's hoovering up. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah.
I'll have that. Earn it.
Yeah, exactly.
But
that's the thing, is that, if you using songs that are big and famous, and like I said, people already have a pre-existing relationship with it, the immersion just takes a hit. Does for me anyway.
Yeah.
Because when Figure It Out started playing, I wasn't paying attention to the story. I was listening to Figure It Out.
Okay, well, I think isn't the very first song that introduces the show Money for Nothing?
Yeah.
Like Going Through the Clouds and you have that kind of intro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember thinking, okay, well, it makes me think of Dire Straits music being used in other things.
Yeah.
That made me think about Brothers in Arms in the West Wing, which is a good use of that song.
Yeah.
It also just made me think of the thing that, in this day and age, what would be incendiary about that song is faggot is used quite a lot in it.
Yeah.
A little faggot on the MTV.
Yeah.
Which would be interesting for people who like KAOS and subscribe to this Spotify soundtrack.
Yes, indeed. They won't. They'll have a clean version.
Oh, yeah, they'll probably have a clean version.
But yeah,
I certainly wasn't thinking, let's go.
Yeah.
KAOS.
It's like, Money for Nothing.
Yeah, that's Money for Nothing.
Yeah, I'll now think of the things that I usually think of when I hear Money for Nothing.
Yeah, or the Curry's advert. I don't know. When we were younger, there was a Curry's advert.
Yeah.
Microwave ovens. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing. I'm not saying shows can never use, or TV or films can never have a song that already has a pre-existing place in the culture. I think films can survive that happening once or twice.
Yeah.
And usually, if their application is used well enough, it has the potential to then become the definitive use of that song.
Absolutely.
What's the song in We Need to Talk About Kevin?
I don't know if it's in the film, I can't remember, but it's certainly in the trailer.
It's in the trailer.
Buddy Holly, Every Day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, that song is now tied to that subject matter.
Hurdy-Gurdy Man is tied to, for me, Zodiac.
Yeah, but this is happening multiple times an episode in KAOS.
Yeah.
Because it does the needle drop thing quite a lot.
It does.
And as we've demonstrated, it's a shallow soundtrack and shallow application, so you're constantly just being dragged out of it.
I realise we haven't really said what it's about.
No,
Would you like to take that?
Yeah, I think this is the Greek mythology, what Mike Flanagan's House of Usher was to the Edgar Allan Poe kind of works.
Yeah. Kind of.
It's sort of a retelling of Greek mythology, but it's kind of modernized quite a bit. Zeus is now living in a mansion in silk pajamas. Poseidon is a bachelor that lives on a yacht. Dionysus is the young party animal that wants more out of the family. He doesn't feel like he's getting enough respect from the family unit.
Yes, and we've seen versions of this before as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, it's not even the greatest hits, is it, of those? I mean, if they envision a long shelf life, they roll out these stories, but what are the stories they tell in the first season? It's Orpheus and the Underworld, right? That's pretty much the only
that's
classic.
Yeah, that's the main narrative thrust of the first season.
Which is considering that it's a show that's really throwing everything at you, they're only kind of doing one. Yeah, I'd maximize it. Well, okay, I'm only going to get one season of this. That's what you have to think. Well, let's do all the big things.
That's what's interesting about it, because I started watching it, and I was 3 episodes in, I was thinking, the gods don't even need to be here.
Yeah, where's Heracles and all that?
Yeah, a lot of them aren't even in it.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
You're waiting for a suggestion of a classic story.
Yeah.
And then until Eurydice goes to the underworld, you're like, oh, they're doing that one, okay.
Yeah.
Is that the season, though? It is.
It is pretty much it. Yeah, because like the sort of the premise at the beginning of the season with Zeus is like, Zeus thinks that there are forces conspiring to dethrone him and like bring an end to the gods. And that's kind of bubbling throughout the whole of the season. And then the conclusion at the end of the first season is, yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
That's the big finale.
And it's open-ended, right?
Yeah, and it's it definitely thinks it's getting more seasons.
Yeah.
And that was really frustrating for me because you tapped out at episode 6.
I did. Yeah.
I stayed to the end, and I got just as satisfying a conclusion as you did.
Right.
Not even finishing it.
Yeah.
Because it's like at the end is just like it's a montage of all of these characters are now going to be doing something else in the second season.
Okay.
So yeah, but what?
Yeah, but they're all boring characters as well. It's like you picked. Obviously, you need Zeus, you need Poseidon, but
yeah.
Didn't you want like Perseus and as like the human characters now, Theseus and why wait? Is it like you're not guaranteed, and you've got to hook people from the off, right?
Yeah,
make like Heracles the main character or something. Do you know what I mean? It's anyway. I did like that it's not Percy Jackson, so it's not the world as we know it with the gods and their battles taking place kind of subterranean, beneath the surface. The gods and humanity in this are intertwined as with the Greek stories. It's not like I think that's one of the things Stephen Fry always points out about the Greek gods is we kind of have a direct relationship with them. Obviously in the Old Testament, God has it, but there are loads of them, and they don't like us, and we don't like them, and it's kind of they're capricious, and it's a fraught relationship we have with them. But yeah, everything relates back to them. So like all ceremonies and rituals, are to Zeus and all that kind of thing. We know they're there. It is Percy Jackson in the modernised depiction of mythological figures. The Furies are bikers.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's also similar to American Gods. I think that's the most obvious recent pull.
Okay.
But American Gods is infinitely better than this.
Right.
Otherwise, it stays at a certain level. The kind of irreverence that you'd expect. International cast, stylized visuals, postmodern diminutions of names. So Ariadne is Ari, Eurydice is Riddy. And geographical adaptations, so Troy is Troy Town now, which is quite uninventive. Seen it all before. In a sense, it's a protracted version of the limbo as admin trope.
Well, yeah, Hades absolutely is that.
Yeah.
When she actually ends up in the underworld. And like that's kind of like the show's only kind of unique thing is that all of the underworld stuff is filmed in black and white.
It's black and white, yeah.
And it's like, okay, like it probably has some thematic relevance and it does give...
That's something.
Yeah, there's some distinction.
I'm thinking that was such a shame going into it because we saw the cast, didn't we? It was Jeff Goldblum as Zeus. Like, okay.
Well, that's the big surprise. It was like, oh, okay. It's kind of like casting Nicolas Cage as Zeus. It's like, well, okay, I have to see that.
Right, yeah. I'm not a Goldblum... He is Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
I'm not really a fan of him, It'd be nice if he acted every now and again. Right. I'm not saying he's a bad actor, but he's fallen into that Nicolas Cage... God, we love Jeff Goldblum. Look at that, him shirtless in Jurassic Park.
I'd say he's a bit closer to Keanu Reeves. Because Nick Cage still Nick Cage will still act. He'll still do stuff.
In that sense, absolutely. Yeah. No, but Jeff Goldblum can act. Keanu Reeves can't.
All right.
But Goldblum, no, I meant close to Nicolas Cage in terms of they're known for being kooky.
Okay.
Kind of unusual men who have unusual inflections and all that kind of thing. So but it was David Thewlis as Hades.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. I meant, count me in. And then, what a shame. It's ambitious, I guess, but it's very hard to care about much that's going on.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to the end.
Yeah. It films around the gods quite a bit. They are in it.
Yeah.
Like Jeff Goldblum, he's in it. He is a character.
Mm-hmm. The right character.
We see a couple of sex scenes with Jeff Goldblum.
We do.
Which is not something I really wanted. He says cunt a few times. I don't know whether he's done that before.
Cunt.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. It's like, you're a cunt. It's that kind of delivery.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like the gods using their powers. So I think there's a scene in the first episode where Zeus is kind of manipulating the clouds to sort of like create thunderstorms or to give rain to people and stuff like that. But then through the rest of the show, whenever he kind of uses his powers, it's all like done off screen and it's all implied. Okay, there's a scene, I don't know if you got this far, where he makes Hades get into the swimming pool and then he electrocutes Hades, almost killing him.
Get in the swimming pool.
Yeah. Well, no, it's filmed as like, he's the intimidating head of the household. So Hades is like, I don't want to go swimming, and he's like, get in the pool, Hades.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to go, ooh.
Right.
Because Hades is like, he understands that he's in trouble. So he's like, fine, I'll do what I'm told. And then Jeff Goldblum just kind of flicks his hand at the pool, and you just hear David Thewlis screaming off screen.
Right.
I was like, I guess I don't need to see it.
No.
But it does feel like the show is filming around its more fantastical elements quite a bit.
Why did he need to be in the pool? It's lightning.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
It's not like, it's a better conductor. Like, it's Zeus.
I think Zeus would manage. Yeah, he wanted to strike someone down.
Not just the god of the skies, but the god of gods.
Yes.
He's the daddy of the gods.
Yeah, exactly.
Get in the pool, or I'm going to get my toaster.
Stay there, Hades. All right, okay?
Yeah, it's a myth, apparently, that whole thing.
What,
Don't
toaster?
go doing it now. Yeah, toasters, they're not real. No, toasters, the thing of going in the bath. Like, they won't electrocute you, won't you? Apparently.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I won't test it.
No, don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Okay, well, the underworld thing, you said, like, the limbo. Yeah, like, she wakes up in the underworld, and she's on a boat, and they have that, like, I used to like janky induction videos.
Yeah, yes.
And now they've just been rolled up into... they've been ruined by the whole, like, limbo thing.
Yeah.
It's like, welcome to the underworld, where you will be processed, and...
Yeah.
It's like, no, these used to be fun, and now they're everywhere, and now it's not fun anymore.
I know, yeah.
And...
The best one, I think, is still, that springs to mind, is the UK Office, where it's the sexual harassment film in the workplace.
Oh, right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
That's, like, they nailed it.
Yeah. And I think that was, like, the right era as well.
2001, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you have all the VHSs from the 90s. They were made by the company in the 90s.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Prometheus is kind of the show's Greek chorus, isn't he?
Yeah, but played by Stephen Delane, is that his name?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who the actor is. He got on my nerves.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't know what a Greek chorus is supposed to be. Like... in the grand scheme of things. I know that they're kind of like the audience connect through them to the piece. I think that's the idea.
Well, yeah, usually the Greek chorus, I could be wrong, but don't they even in the plot? No. They literally just kind of fill you in like, right, okay, that happened now, blah, 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 blah.
And that's what Prometheus starts as. Yeah. Where he's like, hello, my name's Prometheus. I'm going to tell you the story. And this is like how the show makes him speak. It's like, I'm going to tell you the story of how this happens. Yeah. And then he'll kind of introduce something. He'll like introduce a character, and then he'll go, but they're not important. We'll come back to them later.
Yeah, it's that postmodern thing.
And then when they do come back to them, he goes, see, I told you we were coming back to them. It's like, no, I trusted you. You don't need to talk to me like I'm a child.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's that kind of like, he's sort of an exposition machine, but also they've tried to inject personality into it. So it's like, ooh, I'm telling a story.
Strangely enough, sorry to interrupt, but the speaking of Greek mythology, when I was in uni, you won't be listening.
I'm listening.
I don't refer to you in the third person when I'm sitting with each other.
Oh, right.
He won't be listening to me. No, I said he won't be listening. On my course, we had the first thing we had to do first project was we had actors and we had to write a little play for them, like a 10-minute thing. And he had a character that was breaking the fourth wall, and someone makes a reference to Icarus.
Okay.
And then he turns to the audience and goes, Icarus, and tells us what Icarus is. It's like, just assume I know who Icarus is.
Yeah.
Even if I don't.
Yeah. Well, don't
be so condescending.
This show assumes you know what Icarus is.
Yes.
Because Icarus he's not in it, but he comes up.
Yeah.
And they don't, Prometheus doesn't turn to the camera and is like, oh, by the way, Icarus was my gay lover.
Yeah.
Because in this he's gay. I don't know if he is in Greek mythology.
A lot of that in Greek. A lot of gay loving in Greek mythology.
But yeah, it's like, oh yeah, he's my gay lover. I love him. Like, that's who he is. It's like, no, yeah, I assume you know who Icarus is.
Yes.
But yeah, so he starts out like as this exposition machine, but then he becomes a character in the plot very quickly, because Zeus will occasionally teleport into the mansion to kind of talk to him about what's happening, and Prometheus will be like, oh, you're not being very careful, Zeus, and then Zeus will just send him back and shit like that. So he's kind of jumping between being someone who's influencing and being influenced by the plot, and someone who's like telling us the plot from outside it.
Yeah.
But then as the show goes on, things start to happen that he's not aware of.
Yeah.
It's like the show overtakes him at some point and he doesn't know what's happening anymore.
Right.
So something will happen and he'll go, well, I wasn't expecting that. It's like, I thought you were telling me the fucking story.
I suppose the idea is, you have this omniscient character, and all of a sudden he doesn't know things. You're meant to go, oh my god, we are in uncharted territory here.
But you
don't.
Yeah, but the fates are in this.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, we know all of this is predetermined because the prophecies are a huge like thing in the plot.
Yeah.
Basically, everything that happens is like every character has a prophecy, even Zeus, and the whole thing is every prophecy comes true. And so there are characters in the show like King Minos, for example, or President Minos, however they frame it. He's trying to escape his prophecy, and Zeus is trying to escape his prophecy. So there's all like, why wouldn't Prometheus know what's happening?
Yeah.
Sort of, I know we kind of like, I did the whole, Zeus's powers are all kind of shown off screen and everything that. Kind of going off of that point, KAOS, who's a character in this, there's in the 6th episode, I think it is, there's like a flashback to when he was younger, when he was a girl, because he's the character's trans. Yeah. And he's kind of talking about like, oh, this is where I came from and I used to be a girl. I'm going to tell you this story now, Riddy. Yeah. So yeah, there's a filmed flashback where you actually see him as a young girl, and I think he's like an Amazonian, so he's in a tribe that's only with women, and he has a friend who's also trans that gets kicked out because they became a man. Right. So it's like a secret he's holding on to. Okay. And this is like quarter of the episode, I think, or like a little portion of an episode. So it's like weird. It's like, oh, that stuff, which is like a total diversion from the story. We're dedicating time and resources to showing that. Yes. And yet, when it's kind of revealed that Zeus is drinking liquefied human souls, and there's this whole thing about like, oh, he defeated his father Kronos, but actually he's really like him. All of that's just like hand-waved with exposition. Right. And you just see like Jeff Goldblum drinking water, looking very concerned, as Prometheus is going, yes, he's just like his father. Right. It's like, okay, this didn't warrant being visualized in some way. Yes. They've managed to show like a grounded approximation of Mount Olympus. They've managed to show a grounded approximation of Hades. Was Kronos too mighty for them to tackle?
Or season 2.
But I wanted stuff now.
I know. Yeah.
I don't want to watch a show because season 2 might be good.
I concur.
Yeah. Don't watch KAOS.
No, don't.
It's a show that, like, it's already decided what it wants you to think of it.
Right.
And I grew to resent that over time.
Okay.
I guess the only, like, other comment I've got is the woman that plays Persephone, which is Hades' wife, isn't it? Persephone. Yeah. She's Welsh.
And who is that?
I can't remember her name.
Oh, okay.
I think she was like she was in Doctor Who. She was, do you remember Midnight? The episode Midnight?
Not by name.
Okay, I think she was like what you call them? Like the stewardess on that little vessel that they were stuck in for the whole episode.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. But just like, given that we're both Welsh, it was warranted a mention. But yeah, KAOS, not a recommendation.
Okay, no dice. The Crow.
Oh, we got all the winners this episode, don't we? Right.
So it's The Crow. I mean, it's a remake of the 1994.
Is it though?
Well, okay. I mean, The Crow is based on a comic book series, right? So it's you wouldn't call it a remake as much as a re-adaptation, another adaptation of The Crow. It's got Bill Skarsgård in it. He's dull.
He's onto some winners this year as well, isn't he?
I know.
Yeah.
He and the girlfriend pull off the high wire act of lacking chemistry and being unbearable in ways that have nothing to do with the lack of chemistry.
Yeah, that's a problem, because I haven't seen the original Crow, so I'm not comparing it to anything. My understanding, though, is that in the original film, she dies fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that this remake wanted to fix, is it actually wanted to give you time with that relationship so that you miss it as well. Mm-hmm. And it did a good job of showing me that they want to fuck, but it didn't do a good job of showing me that they were like in love.
Weirdly, we'll come back to this point later, but yeah, that's kind of a modern thing.
Okay.
The thing of, like, oh, I loved her and our souls were meant to be, and that's, I think, considered quite twee and arcane.
Okay.
Now, and archaic.
But that's the goal, right? To find someone like that.
No, I don't know, George.
Okay.
No, that's how you show, passion for each other, is they just fuck a lot.
Right.
But yeah, no, I'm depressed by it too.
Yeah.
It's visually anemic. The action is uninspired. I have seen the original. I'm not a particular fan of it, but it's light years better. And this captures none of the energy or vibe that made The Crow this subcultural stalwart. It's a lot of people's favourite film, the original now, and I do get that. With its soundtrack and visuals, it caters to a specific taste. In the 94 film, the soundtrack features artists like Stone Temple Pilots, Nine Inch Nails, Rage Against the Machine, Pantera, a timely record that's very well regarded. Second to the death of Brandon Lee, it's probably the most famous thing about The Crow. The Cure, who wrote a song for the original film, and Joy Division were big influences on the comic book, apparently. So I understand why this new iteration employed Joy Division's Disorder, but no.
Oh, of course. I think this is a point you've made before, isn't it? That's No, you didn't make this point before.
We'll see.
Okay.
I'm still saying no.
Yeah, you know when a show is working for you, or you know when a film is working for you, when it uses a song and you approve of its usage.
Yes.
Oh, and that you like the song.
Yeah.
It's not just like any song. It was like, I don't know this song, but I don't approve of it.
Yeah, and not as like a, yes, this film is therefore excellent. It's just, oh, clearly it's won me over then, because I really like that song and I feel the film has earned it.
Yeah.
You know. And I concede that song and that album mean a lot to me, so it would be tough for anything to earn it in my eyes.
Yeah.
But this really doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
It's quite early on they play, isn't it, when they escape from the asylum?
Which is like ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because it's an asylum and they're just like, oh, let's go. And they just jump out the window.
And also just playing Disorder, like, as they escape an asylum, it's a bit, you know.
Yeah.
The director, Rupert Sanders, has made 3 films.
This film was directed?
Ostensibly.
Okay.
This, Snow White and the Huntsman, and 2017's Ghost in the Shell.
Oh, right.
There's enough of a gulf between Snow White and the Huntsman and anything that came before, you know, going back to the 30s version. I think Snow White now, if someone did a shitty version of it, you wouldn't go, they ruined Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Yeah.
But otherwise, his trademark so far seems to be soiling the legacy of beloved properties.
Right.
It's a dreary slog to be avoided by all. George, what you got to say?
I actually missed like my first note. We kind of jumped ahead.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I said earlier that I haven't seen the original. And all I knew about the original, really, was that it was about a guy who came back to life to take bloody revenge on the people that killed his love. And so when this film opens with the protagonist as a young boy kneeling over a dying horse while monologuing about how awful it is to lose someone you love, I got the wrong impression of the film I was in for.
Okay.
I would have preferred that film, frankly.
Yes, that would have been interesting.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's not very good, you know?
Please don't expect me to listen to you now, rather than just think of horse-related puns about vengeance.
Well, you do that.
Okay.
And then, if you come up with anything good, we'll close out the review on that.
All right.
Yeah, it's the first scene, I think it is. Or the first scene where we see the villain. Mm-hmm. There's someone tied to a chair, and he walks into the room, and he's like, oh, so just so you know, I send people to hell? He's like, yeah, I just send, like, innocent people to hell. Oh, cool, all right. Thanks for telling me.
Yes.
No surprises there. And yet, like, I know that he does it so that he can't die. That's, like, the bargain he made with whoever it was.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll send innocent people to hell, and I can live forever. But, like, why?
Right.
Because it gives us, like, his motivation, like, in the, you know, the shallowest kind of sense. Mm-hmm. But I don't know who he is. I don't know why he made that pact. I don't know if he regrets that. I know nothing about that character, and you'll never learn anything else about him.
I don't really know what happened in the film, to be frank.
Yeah.
I don't really wasn't following it all that much.
Well, no, I don't think there was anything worth following, frankly. Because there's that whole thing, like, when he does die, he goes to that, like, industrial factory limbo thing. Yeah. And there's, like, a guy there who's just like, oh, you're going to have to go, like, kill people now. And then there's, like, a moment in the film where another later moment in the film where he dies again. And the guy's like, oh, you doubted your love for this person. Therefore, you're going to hell now. And Bill Skarsgård's like, but wait, if you have my soul instead, then why don't you, that means you can send me back, right? And the guy's like, well, it's not up to me.
Yeah.
So what the fuck are you there for?
Yeah.
Who are you? Why are you here?
In this film, he guards scars.
Oh, so if you do it, it's fine, is it? And it's just like, it is loads of, the film is just that for me. Like, I'm not going to go through all of them, but it's just like, why did this thing happen? What does it mean? What's happening?
Yeah.
Like, at the end, like, yeah, she dies like halfway through the film. And then when he finally achieves his mission of, like, ultimate vengeance, she wakes up next to him in the place where she originally died.
Right.
And, like, after that scene happened, he goes back to that place and her body is gone. But then when, like I said, when he's achieved his goal, we go back to that place and her body is there again. And she wakes up as he's being, like, dealt with by paramedics.
Yeah.
And he dies.
Right.
It's like, so hang on. What's the timeline of this film? Did Bill Skarsgård like go back in time to the point where she initially died? In which case, the events of the film never happened?
Okay.
Is there like a version of Bill Skarsgård that's actually still out there, like killing everyone?
What's way more about it than I did?
Yeah, but like that's what the experience of the film was for me. It was like, hang on,
what?
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
And like, if the film was like fun, at least that'd be something.
No, it's
really not.
It's dull.
Yeah,
is it the dullest film of the year? It's a contender.
What I will say is that the Opera House sequence, that was more than I was expecting from a film like this. Mm-hmm. It's not like great,
no,
but I appreciate that it was bloody, and I appreciate that it happened, and the fact that it's happening in time to the music and it's cutting back and forth between multiple scenes and what. It's like, all right, some effort went into this.
Yes,
maybe not like a lot. There's far more impressive action sequences that have happened this year, but considering the shit that I've seen up until this point, fine, okay, I'll give you credit for this, The Crow, but that's the only thing I can give it.
So is the headline for this A Murder of Crow?
It is, but I was promised horse-based puns.
Yeah, but then I stopped doing that, and I just thought, oh, we end with A Murder of Crow.
Okay,
that'd be quite
all right,
nice.
Okay.
If one, look, I was trying things like stop in the Neigh of love. Like, there, you happy?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Is that all for The Crow?
Yes. Yeah.
Red Rooms.
Okay.
Now this you haven't seen.
I haven't.
No. Okay. So this is another French-Canadian film in the French language. It's basically about a serial killer is on trial, and this woman is going to the court every day to watch it, and she befriends another woman who's going to the court every day to watch it, and it turns out they're kind of these obsessed fan kind of types.
Oh, okay.
That's how it begins. It's a serial killer movie where the serial killer has already been caught and isn't the focus of the narrative. It's about morbid obsession in the context of the digital age. In short, the internet is terrifying, and a lot of people are too. It's interesting that the lead in this is a conventionally attractive woman. I can't claim this with any certainty, but instinct tells me that most female stalkers aren't beautiful people.
Okay.
More Martha than Margot. That said, I don't know whether that applies to the Ted Bundy fangirl thing. There's a nice long single take in the beginning, in the courtroom, and given its placement at the commencement of a trial, I thought the whole film might be the trial.
Oh, right, okay.
Or even a one-shot. It's definitely set up as a courtroom drama, which it really never becomes, though that flavour's in there. It's a crime mystery and a psychological horror film. You used character horror to describe Maxine. Describe Pearl, yeah. And we talked about how that might not be quite there, but this is in that family.
Okay.
It's a horror and horrible film in its subject and the orientation of its lead, but it's mostly an unsettling atmosphere. We come within blurry view of one not even jump scare. Much of the explicit content is through inference and suggestion. Your imagination does most of the work, so we very briefly see the aftermath of a grisly killing, but it's so fleeting and inscrutable, it barely counts as obscene. One of the quote-unquote victories for the possibly high-functioning autistic but otherwise sociopathic protagonist is that the killer, who remains immobile throughout the trial, looks at her and waves goodbye when she provokes a reaction.
Right.
That's the volume of the horror.
Okay.
Because, she does something to get a reaction out of him. She's escorted out of the courtroom quite forcefully, and he looks at her, and you kind of jump. It's like, oh, he moved, It reminded me of Anthony Hopkins and The Silence of the Lambs, where a gesture packs a punch.
Yeah.
Okay. If he just makes a little expression, you go, ooh, fucking hell.
Is this person played by anyone?
No, all of them are unknown. So
okay.
They're Canadian actors. So like newbie Canadian actors.
Okay.
It doesn't end where you think it will. Perhaps it has a hint of hope, but perhaps not. There's a nice ambiguity. On one level, it's a lot less nasty than it could have been, given its precedents. There's one character that maybe has a redemption arc. It depends on how you view the film. But Kellyanne, the main character's headspace, remains at best warped. There's an action she undertakes at the end that may be considered an outgrowth of heroic will. But if you consider its context and its intended audience, it is not.
Okay.
You never see the reaction to that gesture, which is also fodder for one's shadow mind. But it reminded me of Travis Bickle taking Betsy to see the porn film in Taxi Driver for their date. He just doesn't get that that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
We're used to badly trained audiences not getting it, right? I've been watching The West Wing with my mother. And do you remember in The West Wing the scene where Bartlett meets Abdul Sharif, the Minister of Defence for Kumar?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and this guy's a Tara financier. And they exchange gifts in the Oval Office. And Sharif gives Bartlett some beautiful handcrafted box. And Bartlett, after Sharif leaves, unceremoniously tosses it to one of his generals. The point being, Bartlett's utter disgust. You know, he won't shake the guy's hand. Sharif could give him the elixir of life and he'd pour it down the toilet.
Yeah.
When he tossed it to his general, my mother jumped because she thought it was going to be a bomb.
Oh, right.
So she had failed to understand the show she was watching. All to say, I've read some wildly off-the-mark stuff and takes on the film. But films like this are not being consumed by typical mainstream audiences. I'm not elitist enough to credit anyone who watches it with superior intelligence, but you would expect such viewers to be a little more cine literate. If you're watching this, you're probably not a casual film viewer, right? So apparently, those other interpretations are there to be found, but I personally don't see how they could have been.
Okay. I noticed that you like...
I'm skirting around. Yeah, because where it goes is kind of the film route. I don't want to spoil anything.
Which I'm assuming is good. That means you're recommending this.
It's a dark little gem and you should check it out.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of it.
Okay, alright then.
COLIN from Accounts.
Yes.
Australian comedy. About a couple. One of them runs over a dog because of the woman. And they take the dog to the vet, and that sort of begins a chain of events that leads to them living together and a relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with a bad thing. At the beginning of each episode, if you're watching the Australian version of the broadcast, the Foxtel group acknowledges the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which this program was produced. Why?
Is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
Why is it a bad thing?
Well, okay, firstly I'll say that's not outrage on my part, that's fatigue, right? And I know, as usual, I could face the gamut of criticism from, well, why would you bother making a fuss about it, to you're racist. And it's not a big deal. I don't have a big problem with it. It's just, if we start applying that forward everywhere, you'd never get to the fucking program.
Right.
There's something unique about Australia and its Aboriginal people. That's happened everywhere always.
Okay.
So it's like, oh, why that? You know? And I don't know whether it's infused all parts of Australian life, but it just felt like, why in this show are you saying that? Yeah,
I mean, this is the thing. Like, I don't watch much Australian media. No. It's the first time that I've seen it.
Okay.
But I don't know if, like when I saw, like, Auntie Donna's most recent stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if they're...
Well, that's Netflix anyway, right? So
I suppose. But yeah, I don't know if they're, like, making that show in an environment where they would even need to make that disclaimer. And I also don't know the motivation for that disclaimer. I don't know whether that is... Like, if you were an Australian citizen, I don't know whether that would be considered, like, an unnecessary...
I think it...
Or whether it is, like, oh, that's just, like, a...
No, I think it would probably be the same as it is here, which is the left would love it and the right would be a bit, why?
Okay.
And again, I don't have, like, a problem with it. It's just, well, let's just do that for everything, then. Like, if you're putting that in COLIN from Accounts, which isn't remotely about Aboriginal culture or isn't filmed on reservations or, you know, whatever the Aboriginal equivalent of that is, why aren't you putting that on trains?
Maybe they are. I don't know.
Well, I doubt it though, right? Okay. I mean, like I said, I don't know how infused it is, but that's the thing with media, is people feel an obligation to do that kind of thing. It's like, why though? It seems because you're communicating, because you're putting something out there, it feels like that's the place to do it. But it's just as arbitrary as going to work in your office and like, right, let's pay homage to the people that once sat in this land. It's just silly.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've got to resume efforts to repopularize Eric Weinstein's all usual caveats.
Okay.
So you don't have to do that shit every time. It's all usual caveats. We respect the blah blah. We're not an ist.
Yeah. I see you saying that this, like, they shouldn't have to make this disclaimer. It should just be taken as...
I think we can take it as read, can't we? That in the civilized world, most people aren't pro-colonization.
Yeah. And then we acknowledge that, like,
that
this was someone else's land first.
The penal colony thing was probably not on.
Yeah.
And it was somebody else's land first, but that was a very long time ago, and nobody alive now had that land before anyone else who's alive now. And anyway,
okay,
let's talk about Colin from Accounts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because this isn't the show.
No, that's not the show at all. That's just a weird little thing.
Okay.
There's a woman in an early episode that looks like a white Kamala Harris, and I just wanted to report Koala Harris.
Who is that? I can't remember.
Sorry, Down Undies. It's a woman that is interested in buying, or they think is interested in buying the brewery.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, it's like the second or third episode or something like that.
Yes, okay.
It mostly has the tone that you would expect of a modern indie comedy. I did laugh out loud once watching it solo, and I found it very charming. Those two are likeable, and it's nicely written and binge-worthy as well.
Yeah, because it's husband and wife duo, right?
That wrote it and star in it, yeah.
Yeah, Patrick Bramall.
Yeah. We'll come back to.
Yeah, remember that name.
Yeah.
It was like during COVID or something. You said that.
Yeah, he convinced his wife to just try writing something, and then she wrote the pilot script.
Yeah.
He read it, liked it. He wrote the second one, and that's kind of how they've done it, I think, ever since.
Yeah. No, it is I'm surprised by just like how well paced.
Yeah.
This show is, because it's half-hour episodes, 8 episodes a season. There's 2 seasons currently. The second one ended like slightly earlier this year,
and I can imagine it will be renewed.
I'm sure it will. Yeah, because it's got big critical attention overseas. Because I think it recently aired on the BBC.
Yeah,
and got a lot of people really liked it.
A big thing over here. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if it's got international praise, then I'm sure it's going to be coming back.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we've complained before about things are too long. Mm-hmm. But I think part of we've also said that part of the reason that things are too long is because people can't. A lot of modern shows don't know how to use their time properly.
Yes,
they're used to being on Netflix or Amazon, where it's like, oh, you want an hour and a half episode? Yeah, all right.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, the next episode's 40 minutes. Sure.
Yeah,
and so people have forgotten to do the serialized, syndicated. 22 episodes
structured
like everything,
4 acts, 2 acts.
Everything's 46 minutes long, and it's 22 episodes a year. Go do it.
So we are currently watching Mad Men, which is AMC, it's cable, and all those episodes are 47 minutes.
Yeah,
it's great. I know exactly what I'm getting when I turn on.
Yeah, exactly.
I think even in its final season, I think the final 2 episodes come close to an hour.
Yeah,
but everything else was still 47, 48 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think that's. I notice it more with like modern half-hour comedies, is that you can see that they really don't know how to use their time. They're either rushing through the plot to kind of get everything set up so they can just tell jokes, or they're just kind of like faffing about.
Yeah,
they're not really doing anything.
Tires, would that be a good example of that?
Tires is kind of a good example. Piglets, which I don't think we ever talked about. It's like an ITV comedy. Came out recently.
Yeah, okay.
Mark Heap is in it.
Yes,
it's the one where like police officers were complaining about it.
We talked about it. I don't think we talked about it on the podcast.
We didn't talk about it on the podcast, but that's a British half-hour comedy on ITV, and that was just like, after like the first episode, it's like, what is this?
It's comedy show.
Yeah. Here's like
it's a comedy.
Yeah, here's a wacky scenario. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's another. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Whereas with Colin from Accounts, they know how to tell a story within half an hour in a funny way.
Yes.
The episodes from the second season where she doesn't come home, like he's made dinner for her and she doesn't come home. And then the second half of the episode, it cuts to her perspective and you find out why she doesn't come home. Now, like there's a lot of TV shows, including prestige dramas. 6 Feet Under is kind of the first one I can think of off the top of my head, where there's an episode dedicated to a character.
The After Hours episode.
Yeah.
Based on the Scorsese film After Hours.
After Hours, yeah.
Characters locked out for the night or whatever.
Yeah.
Strange adventures ensue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those dramas, those characters will go through multiple situations and scenarios and their mental state and they'll decay over the course of the night. And
they'll meet someone who may or may not be like God. Or
something. They build up these really strange relationships.
A homeless person that like is a paranoid schizophrenic that might be God. And I say that as someone who we've kind of done versions of that ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And Colin from Accounts manages to do that episode really well.
Yeah,
in like 15 minutes because it's only half an episode.
Yeah, that episode notched the show up a rung for me.
Yeah,
but I'll want to come back to it a little bit later. It's not employed frequently in the show. This is a micro note, but I really hate the word doggo.
Okay.
I first heard it around 2017. Up until then, what I knew was doggy. You too?
Yeah.
I'd say I get why it's been replaced, but there's rarely a rationale for these things, right? Just insidious evolution.
Yeah.
we can't all cringe when a little kid calls their father daddy. Anyway, I don't like Doggo, and Colin will always be the dog from Spaced for me.
Okay.
But it's fine.
Yeah,
Colin is a dog, is the dog from Spaced.
Okay, but this Colin is like...
He's
his own
fine.
Colin, Sam.
Well, he's disabled Colin, so it's a different type of dog, isn't it?
He's a good boy.
His breed is disabled.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of that type of dog.
No?
It's too small for me.
Good boys. Oh, I thought you meant good boys.
No. How dare you?
Yeah.
I like good boys.
Yeah. Is Colin one of the gooder boys on television?
Of all the dogs on television?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I really think about things in those terms. But I don't know. Like I said, we just started watching Mad Men, and they've got a dog called Polly, and I like that dog a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's a golden retriever. So
exactly.
That's cheating.
I know, but like that is what I think we said about something before. It's like, oh, what's more delicious, cake or looking an apple and you or cake? And, yeah, but like, no, the cake is still the more delicious thing.
Yeah,
doesn't matter. I'm not going to be a contrarian and go, oh, actually, apples are better for you. No, golden retrievers are the best dogs.
They're pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, they're hard to beat. Anyway.
Yeah, but no, I mean, this type of dog is not a dog. I'm like pretty neutral on the type of dog that Colin is.
Yeah, I'm neutral. Yeah, I don't dislike the dog.
Yeah, but I do like the dog in this.
Okay,
because they managed to kind of get a lot out of him with the dog doing very little. Yeah.
The show in a way orbits the dog, but not with him having to do anything.
Oh, the dog is the whole reason that everything happens.
Yes,
but by the time you get to the second season, when the characters have kind of settled into their relationship and the dynamics are kind of more defined, the dog features less and less in it, which is a bit disappointing. It's sort of like the zombies in The Walking Dead. It's like occasionally they'll reference them, but it's really just about like the people.
Well, of course, it's never really about the dog, is it?
Yeah,
that's the thing. The dog is just kind of to provide an inciting incident.
Yeah, but the dog, the dog is an effective.
Of course,
when the dog is in the scene, it's like, oh yeah, the dog.
But also, a dog is a great thing to bind people together that would complete strangers that have no reason to see each other.
Yeah,
a dog is the kind of thing that would. But it's a dog.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And that's like half of the first season.
Yeah.
It's like the whole thing really. It's like them struggling to figure out whether they even like each other and then what the relationship of the nature of their relationship even is.
Yes.
But they're like, but the dog though.
Yeah.
And that's why they kind of stick together.
Exactly, yeah. In terms of empathy, you're more with Gordon than her. We probably are anyway, right?
Yeah.
But the show does a nice job of balancing that out pretty well for the most part until her birthday episode. The fact that those people are her friends reflects awfully on her character. Yeah,
but this is interesting because it's sort of it's like you said, it's kind of tonally very typical of like in modern indie comedy.
And let's say we talk about like getting a lot of laughs and it's funny. It's not a comedy; it's a comedy drama, really.
Yeah,
and an indie comedy drama. But like when I say indie comedy drama, that's usually to impugn something. No, it's a good version of that, but it's not an all-out gag fest.
No. But there are injections of, like, a lot of the humour kind of orbits around awkwardness and cringe.
Yes.
And there are plenty of characters in the show that are there to generate awkward, cringe encounters. Mm-hmm. Lee,
the guy that works at the brewery with him, right?
The guy that works... No, Lee is the stepfather, her stepfather.
Oh, sorry, yeah. And the guy that works at
the brewery. Brett, who works at the brewery. Right, Yvette the vet. Like, all of these characters are there to make life as uncomfortable as possible for the main characters. But usually, considering that the show is like full of them, usually it works because the encounter is either necessary, like with Yvette the vet. It's like, well, we have to get along with her for the sake of Colin's health.
Yeah.
Or it's like a family member like Lee, where it's like, oh, well, I kind of have to tolerate this person.
Yes.
For the sake of this interaction. And then in that episode where she goes missing... Like the police officer that's like a big green egg fan.
Yeah.
Who's like just not doing his job because he wants to talk to the guy Gordon about like his big green egg. All of these like awkward accounts, but the friends for me was like they just went too far over the line.
Too not stereotypical. Yeah, just complete cliches of, and it's a cliche that I'm happy to lampoon and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, where they were just complete despicable millennial twats.
Well, it felt like it was being pushed too far.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of usually
there's no humanity with some of them.
Yeah,
like they are just those tropes.
Yeah, and even characters where they don't really inject humanity into them, like Lee.
Yeah,
there's usually enough specificity to them that they're not just like archetypes.
Yeah,
like the fact that they have to keep Lee away from the internet because he'll just cause trouble.
Yes,
like that kind of thing. stops that character from just becoming like the disgusting stepfather. He becomes a character in and of himself.
Yeah.
Whereas her friends are just irredeemable pieces of shit.
Absolutely.
And like if they were colleagues, it'd be different because it's like, oh, I guess she has to hang out with them.
Yeah.
Because like Meg's her friend. I know you don't like things. I
don't like diminutions.
Okay.
I don't like that. Hey, it's the Barbie, all that kind. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah. Like she's sort of halfway between the friends.
She's fine.
She's fine.
Yeah.
But those friends are like, I don't see why you'd want to hang out with them.
No, the thing is, the show shares that opinion in terms of Gordon in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, he outright calls the one guy a cunt.
Yeah.
And he is a cunt.
Yeah. But then he gets in trouble for that.
I know, but the show knows how kind of hideous they are. And the show does otherwise lampoon some millennial things, the age difference between them and everything. But yeah, when she castigates him for it, you're sort of meant to be drawn more to her side of, they may be awful shits, but they're my friends and you embarrass me. And you go, why are you friends with them? That's all you're thinking is, you're all right. But
also, they trashed his brewery.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no, he's in the right here for being annoyed.
Yeah, of
and
course.
the fact that you're not even giving him any credit there.
Yeah, but that was the one little speed bump, I would say.
Because usually they handle it pretty well.
Yeah,
like I said,
I like them both.
Yeah, the dialogue, the pacing, and like the way that they draw character out of people that aren't really around for that often. It keeps the show running quite smoothly, even during its more uncomfortable moments.
Yeah.
But I think that was the one thing where I was like, no, they've miscalculated here. It just doesn't feel right.
It felt like a different show.
Yeah.
It felt like more of an outright comedy in terms of the characterizations of those characters. Like, they're big. They're like Parks and Rec characters almost,
Yeah.
Yeah, the episode where she falls asleep on the train, the after hours thing. Like, I've seen versions of that episode before, but this was a very good version of it.
Yeah.
There's something about her having to keep running away from paying that I just found hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's weirdly, it's the kind of thing I wouldn't usually laugh at. But I did. Just how relentless it was.
Yeah.
And just her, like, getting herself a Chinese, knowing she won't be able to pay for it. Like, she does, with the taxi driver, she kind of ends up in that situation. But I like with the Chinese, it must be a calculated, right, I know I'm going to have to run away.
Yeah.
I just found that funny. It's funny how drilled into us these narratives are, right? So we instantly know, as soon as the show starts, that we're watching something about an odd couple becoming an actual couple with a unique meet cute. I would like to see something that completely flips that on its head. And I'm not criticising this by dint of that.
No.
Audition kind of does that, where you think you're watching a certain type of film and you are not. And here we go for the prudish conservatism bit. It used to be the case that love stories would develop over years. One character would fall in love, the other one down the road. The timing would never work out. Ultimately, they'd share a kiss, then have a relationship, then break up, then get together, reconcile years later. I'm finding more and more the first thing to happen is the sex.
Oh, is this what you were referring to earlier?
Yeah. Sometimes it's literally the inciting instant in things like Catastrophe or Daddy Issues. I'm a fan of both, by the way. There's not a build-up to sex, there's a build-up to love. And I'm not saying you should wait for marriage necessarily, and I'm not saying it isn't reflective of the real world. I'm not saying it's not accurate. But I don't know, I just missed that slow burn.
Well, that's kind of part of what makes it so depressing, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, this is how things kind of are.
That is how things are. And it's just more satisfying when you have to wait. The whole will they, won't they is a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason.
Yeah.
We like to see that, and ooh, they shared a look, ooh, they shared a kiss. You don't want them like fucking straight away and then title credits. Like, no. And this doesn't do that, but it is soon that they get to that point.
Yeah.
And then they don't have sex, and then it kind of, it claws back a bit. But I'm seeing that narrative all the time. It's always the same thing, is couple have sex, don't see each other, then have to be back in each other's life for some reason.
Yeah.
And then have to have sex properly, where they're not drunk, and it's not like, where they have to inject intimacy into it. It's like, there's just something fucked up about this whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strong recommendation.
Yes, it is. It's a very good show.
Yeah.
It's a very good show. And finally, Evil. I'll say from the off, spoilers.
Yes.
Right, spoilers.
Spoilers, go watch it.
Go watch it. Yeah, this is a strong recommendation. There's no use holding out on that.
And it feels like it's the type of thing that like one of those rare things where you feel duty bound to recommend it to people almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's worth saying this is a show that's ended. Like very recently it ended.
2 weeks ago.
In its 4th season. It's a show that kind of ended before its time.
Yeah.
They did like give it an ending. It's not like, oh, we'll never know what happens to XYZ. It does have an ending.
Yeah.
But it's a show that absolutely deserved to keep going.
100%.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best shows ever made.
Yeah.
It's also pretty unseen. So
yeah, like no one watched it.
No one watched it. So I can see that a review with any kind of depth, in terms of season 4 at least, is mainly for us.
Yeah.
For the purposes of cataloguing. We reviewed the final season of Succession when we hadn't done so for the previous seasons, but Succession was such a cultural mammoth, it felt more appropriate.
Yeah.
This isn't. So let's start by speaking broadly about the show.
Okay.
The premise. Do you want to take the premise?
Okay, so it's a procedural, really.
Yeah.
But it's sort of a unique one because you've got a female psychologist.
Yeah, forensic psychologist. A black Catholic priest. Yeah.
And an Arab?
Yeah, well, like atheist Muslim.
Yeah, atheist Muslim tech guru.
Yeah.
These three...
Genius, kind of.
Genius, yeah. These three join forces under the banner of the Catholic Church and are sent out to investigate cases where there is a suspected demonic presence.
Yes.
And basically they have to diagnose whether there are actually demons at play and whether the church needs to step in or whether they are completely explainable.
Yeah, mental illness, trickery, that sort of
thing. Mold in the thing which is causing whatever.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of shows you've seen.
Well, that's what's kind of genius about it, is that it's a very comfortable, very recognisable format.
Yeah.
And it's a subject that is broadly recognised at the very least. We all know what religion is, we all know what demons are, but it's the where this show can go that really makes it, you know?
But that thing of you have one character who believes X, another character who kind of believes Y, and then another character kind of maybe in the middle, comic relief. Yeah, that's setup we're used to. But it's much more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it started on CBS before moving to Paramount Plus. That allowed the show to go further than it otherwise would have.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the debate between faith and reason, between religion and science, is at the core of the show. The bottom line is, it's like nothing else on television.
Yeah.
It's stuck to its procedural guns until the very end, which you have to admire.
Yeah, because you've got shows like Grimm, for example. I never saw the entirety of Grimm.
Yeah.
But there was a point after I stopped watching it where the show just became lore.
That happens a lot. Shows like Alias as well.
Yeah.
Lost was never a procedural, but...
Yeah, it kind of starts as, here's the rigid formulated version of this show.
Yeah.
And then by the time you get to season 4, all of the characters are united against the ultimate evil.
Yes, and they pepper in the kind of, the overarching story of the show. You'll get like, they'd be called mythology episodes.
Yeah.
You know, this is where we do one episode that's connected to the overall story. The Mentalist, I think the big thing with that was his wife had been killed by a serial killer that he was looking for, and that was the overarching story, but then week to week you had cases, right?
Yeah.
That's a standard thing. Cable shows like The Sopranos and Mad Men obviously did revolutionary things with years-long narratives and character development. Despite being procedurals, Evil and The Good Wife, so the creators of Evil also created The Good Wife.
Oh yeah, that's worth mentioning.
Yeah, The Kings. Evil and The Good Wife feel like those other shows. Premium high-quality drama. Because of the case of the weak nature of the show, some stories naturally weren't going to be as strong as others, but overall it had a pretty consistent hit rate.
I would say so, yeah.
It deals with very contemporary issues, right? So The Good Wife was hailed for its prescience in terms of the internet and the law. The things Evil deals with, artificial intelligence and the like, are incredibly of the moment. That means it sometimes swerves into disagreeable areas of culture and politics, which is the show's one tiny drawback for me. It's not so much because I don't agree with it, but it frustrates me that a psychologist would think certain things and behave a certain way sometimes.
Yeah, but you could chalk that up to just that's the character, though.
Well, that's the thing. So Kristen, the psychologist, she has a contempt for so many people. And I'm a fan of her no-nonsense attitude generally, but when it comes to racial issues and the like, she's so dismissive and way too judgmental for her job. To a lesser extent, this is true of David. Race is his... I won't say blind spot, but I would argue flags up prejudice more than it manifests, and it clamps down on his compassion.
Do you think the show recognises that?
I think the show outright concurs with that assessment sometimes.
Okay.
Such as with the robot dog.
Yeah.
There's a robot dog that they think has been programmed to attack black people, and the guy who programmed it turns out to be black.
Yeah.
It's a tiny drawback because it remains true to the characters. And I will concede that may be true in other things where the politics are annoying, but the rest of Evil is so good. You extended a charity that you otherwise wouldn't.
Yeah.
To some extent, that's hypocrisy, but it does matter how we are talked to. One of the most distinct things about the show is its sense of humour.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Tonally, how would you describe this show?
I think there is a perfectly delicate balance of outright hilarity, pathos, and horror.
Yeah. Because, I recommended this show to a colleague of mine. She was like, my husband's kind of away on business. I want something to watch, after I put the kids to bed, so it's just going to be me. And I was like, oh, well, it's a show called Evil. You could, give that a go. Mm-hmm. She's like, is it going to be scary? I was like, sometimes, yeah. But, I think you'll manage.
Yeah.
Because, that scene in the first episode with the demon is sort of a good metric of, this is the balance that the show is trying to achieve. One of the main characters...
It's quite... very quickly, if you go back to that pilot, it's quite jarring, actually. If you're not used to the tone.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this?
Yeah, no, exactly, yeah. But the show keeps working on that tone as you go along, so you become very adjusted to it. Yeah, one of the main characters wakes up and she's having sleep paralysis for, I think, the first time in her life.
Yes.
And so, it's filmed as you would expect a horror scene to be filmed, where she's lying stationary in bed and she can see that she can't move, but there's something on the other side of the room and she can't actually make out what it is.
Yeah.
But then it starts to move and its form becomes apparent and it's approaching her and it's like, oh, fuck, okay. And then it introduces itself as George and it just starts fucking with her. And and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, what's this? Yeah, and... Yeah, in terms of the horror, I don't just mean straight scares, like The Elevator Girl would be a good example.
Oh, God, yeah. That was actually,
That's a creepy horror episode.
Yeah.
I
don't
that was horrible.
This. Yeah.
What do they call it? The tuk-tuk girl? Is that what it is? The tuk-tuk girl? The sound she makes because she drags
the nails.
But beyond that, there's a scene where Kristen sees the aftermath of a man having cut the baby out of his wife's stomach.
Yeah.
Now, you don't see it, just a horrified reaction, but it hits. There's even a sense of humour in the title sequences, where they put these little notes like, Jenny Park of Sun Valley, Utah, skipped the intro and lost all her hair.
Well, they've got... it comes later. I think it comes around the time that they move over to streaming.
Yeah,
at some point, they start having a full-blown title sequence, but that's accompanied by these pop-up books, which function as the title cards for the episodes. And they're great.
They're great. And I think the thing...
And they've got other than just the craft of the book...
Yeah.
They have a sense of humour to them. There are a couple that do they make me jump as well.
Yeah, I think one of the reviews, or maybe it's even the consensus on Rotten Tomatoes about the final season, it was something like, Evil goes out not with a bang, but a chilling cackle. I was like, yeah, chilling cackle. That's the show. Yeah. Really. I love the bombast of the title music. It's so over the top.
Yeah. It's kind of... what's the piece called? Is it In the Hall of the Mountain King?
Yeah.
It feels a bit like that.
Yeah, it also feels a bit like Max Richter's score for The Leftovers, season 1.
Yes. Where it's very, hyperbolic, angelic, that kind of score, yeah.
But yeah, the pop-up books, I think it's the fact they're just giving us stuff they absolutely don't need to. You don't need that at all. They're just have a little bit of extra for no reason, you know?
Yeah, it's I will, thank you.
I will, yeah, it's just
lovely.
It's a treat. So other small things I liked across the show, Dr. Boggs' writing aspirations.
Oh, that was so, yeah. I mean, whenever you put a character in a thing that's trying to write, I mean, that is going to connect.
Yeah.
But there's just, I don't know what they draw, if they drew on anything in particular, the Kings, from their own experiences, because they seem to be very prolific.
Yes.
It's hard to imagine them struggling to...
With writer's block, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, just the way that that's handled in the show. Yeah. And his utter triumph when he creates something that people like.
Yeah. I've made fire! Yeah. Bumblebee Valley, the video game.
Yeah.
The naming conventions for each season.
I will say that, the naming conventions are good. That's, one little gripe that I have, but it's not specific to Evil. I think TV and film in general they haven't yet demonstrated to me that they properly understand what a video game is.
Okay. No, I fair.
Yeah. There's a few episodes surrounding, VR apps and stuff like that, and it's this technology just doesn't exist yet.
No, of course. I mean, I'm okay making that leap. I mean, I'm not as big of a gamer, that's part of it, but also just is it real? Is it a game? Like the show
That's fine.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I understand that.
Yeah.
But I think it's just because...
I take your point.
Yeah, I think it's because I know that other shows have made this mistake before.
Yeah. It's
like, is it making a mistake or is it trying to blur the boundary?
Right. No, fair enough.
Yeah.
The whole concept of the sigils. So that satisfied the list-taking strand of my personality.
I won't reveal like how they wrap that up in the final episode. But there's
I'm going to.
Oh, you are going to?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to? Because that...
I've said spoilers. Like,
was
genuinely
great.
Go and watch it.
Yeah.
But we're reviewing the ending, so you really shouldn't listen to this if you don't want it spoiled.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll come to that. I think had the show gone on as long as they'd wanted it to, I doubt they would have reached the end of that list.
No.
Evil can never be truly defeated, and the fact that one house is resurrected demonstrates that.
Yeah.
The most divisive element of the show was the daughters, I think, from reading some commentary about it.
Okay.
I'm prone to be annoyed by kids.
Yeah.
But I really liked them.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Like, I thought they were funny and cute. The latter indicating that I was entering the next chapter of my life.
Right.
Like, oh god, I'm finding kids cute now. I'm not saying I'm realising I'm a paedophile.
No, yeah. It's like, yeah. There's merit to having children.
Yeah,
Shit.
exactly.
But no, I think like credit has to be given to the actresses as
Absolutely.
well. I think they really work together.
Yeah, I think they were compared to, the King said they're like the Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, like a little comedy troupe.
Yeah.
The constituent elements are all impressive. The cinematography, the direction, the production design. Evil has a distinct palette. A lot of darks, a lot of wood paneling. I love that kind of thing. Kristen's house depresses my father.
Right.
Not just because it's next to train tracks, but the colour scheme. You'd think, it's miserable, isn't it? I like it.
Okay.
The makeup, the designs of the demons, the prosthetics, the pig.
Oh yeah, I want to stress this: practical demons.
Practical demons, yeah. People in costumes and makeup.
Yeah. And like, I think the jank is kind of part of it in some cases.
Yeah, but the mouths just move like puppets almost. Yeah. Yeah, they use CG as little as they can, and I'll always appreciate that. The truth is, I could tell you at least 10 things I liked about every episode, and we'd be here all night, and I'd forget 100 more. But if I want to single out one moment, for some reason the scene that stayed with me is Ben fixing Kristen's toilet and the shrunken head Bob's back up. As an audience member, this is one of the times we actually do know what's going on. But he doesn't. And instead of reacting comically or dramatically, he just becomes completely disillusioned.
Yeah.
Cultural derealization, they call it, right? If we're going to single out some episodes as the best, I think we'd agree that S is for Silence is near the top.
The Silent Monastery one's great, yeah.
And The Demon of the Road.
Yeah, I don't know what... Because that's just another episode. There's nothing special about that episode. But it really stuck with me for some reason.
Same. It stuck with... I think the first time I watched it through on my own, like in real time, that episode was like... I feel like I should be paying more attention to the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%.
The elevator one is great as well, because that, for me, felt like the first episode where it really pushed the horror. Yeah.
And there's another episode in this season, but we'll come to that in season 4. Silly little details are the key, right? So detail and absurdity. So the scent machine springs to mind with the UFOs, or Grace having to blow up balloons to communicate with God.
Yes.
Or inflatables, isn't it?
Yeah.
As an atheist, it's hard to believe that any contact with a transcendent or spiritual intelligence would demand such specificities, but why not?
Yeah.
It's all pretty balmy in the first place, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like The Leftovers, isn't it? Where it leads more into that stuff as it goes along.
I was going to say, beyond the absurdity, it's great at the details that just make it a little different, right? So you've got the fact that Kristen has 4 daughters.
Yeah.
Why not a son and a daughter? It's 4 daughters. The fact that they live next to a train track, that she drinks margaritas from cans, things like that.
Yeah.
And yes, Evil reminds me a lot of The Leftovers. That intersection of divinity, profound awe, and goofiness.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous, you're making this up, why do I have to put my penis on the scanner thing?
Yeah. That's The Leftovers. That's The Leftovers. That's not Evil.
No, I don't know if the Kings were inspired by The Leftovers, but it does feel like they owe it a debt.
Yeah.
The performances across the board are fantastic. Katja Herbers, Christine Lahti, Kurt Fuller. But special mentions must be given to Asit Mandvi. Not a stunning performance, necessarily, but for what started as pure comic relief. I really appreciate the depth that developed.
Yeah, because there were a couple of times in the show where we turned to each other and went, I guess he isn't the comic relief character. Like, they're actually taking him very seriously. Absolutely. That's kind of nice.
Michael Emerson is such a great villain.
Well, this is my question now. Is he Ben or is he Leland to you?
You know what? Both. Honestly, I think watching Lost, I would not think of Leland, and watching Evil, I don't think of Lost. Genuinely, I don't.
Okay.
Despite the fact they're both villains. They're both like kind of cunning, manipulative, but they're very different.
Yeah.
Ben is kind of humorless. Leland isn't.
No.
Michael Emerson, he's such a great villain, and he does get under your skin. I think it's a shrewd insight that the representative of evil in the modern world would essentially be someone enacting Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah.
Which The Social Network also predicted, of course. Mike Coulter brings a real humanity to David. Andrea Martin may be the MVP for me. Not the deepest, most rounded character. I think she's meant to be a constant, really, isn't she? She doesn't change.
Sister Andrea.
Yes. She doesn't change. Yeah. But I love it every time she's on screen.
Yeah. Because it's evil. When evil starts, it's very much married to that idea that, this could be angelic or demonic in nature, or it could be real.
Yes.
I guess we'll never know.
Right.
And then there's a point where the show goes, no, we know.
Yes.
And it does, even in the cases, it still maintains that ambiguity, which is nice. But in terms of the broad mythology of the show, it does shed the ambiguity at one point.
Never definitively, but it becomes undeniable, I would say. Mission creep. It steadily becomes undeniable. They never go, oh my God, that's real, that happened. But you just go, okay, I'm not a dummy.
Yeah,
that's
exactly. Yeah. But Sister Andrea is one of those characters where she's under no delusion as to what's happening.
I read someone commenting saying like, oh, I love her. She might be a schizophrenic, but hey, I was like, you still think that, do you?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we're meant to even think that's a possibility.
No.
But Leland and Sister Andrea will go down as two of my favourite TV characters. And one thing I lament is they didn't share more scenes together.
Yeah.
David would vie for a place in that list too, but it's not just the characters, but their relationships. David and Kristen, David and Andrea, Leland and Cheryl. As time goes on, you like spending time with them, and you really buy into the friendship between the three leads. The recurring characters are terrific too, the Monsignors, Victor Leconte, George, of course, the manager, and the various demons. So let's hone in a bit on the final season.
Okay.
Now. So, the show was renewed for a 4th season, and then I think toward the end of production, they were told, you're not getting a 5th season, we'll give you 4 episodes to wrap it up. So that's kind of the context of this final batch. Evil reminds me of Mr. Robot, in that by the end, nobody was really talking about it, even though it was doing some of its best stuff.
Yeah.
But there was a hardcore cult fan base on Reddit debating it. So I'm basically just going to list things now that I liked about the final...
Okay.
The first 10 episodes, so season 4, as it were. It won't mean anything to most people, I get that, but I just want to get it on the record. So, Ben finally accepting pragmatism over pure logic with his tinfoil hat. The remote viewing concept.
That's when it goes like full leftovers, isn't it? Where even David's going, what's going on? What is this?
Absolutely. And I found out that's real, by the way. The CIA's done experiments with remote viewing. You can read the reports online.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Father Dominic, I really liked him. Though he's a great addition to the cast. The glass ceiling in Cheryl's office.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's
like a brilliant example of just the show having fun, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. The possessed pigs. Nice callbacks like the squeaky shoes nurse. Leslie just being very attractive. Leland dealing with a baby, plonking him alongside Eli Gold and Nelson Van Alden in the pantheon of menacing characters becoming ridiculous characters. The aphasia storyline was effectively destabilizing because that's exactly the kind of stuff that freaks me out.
Yeah.
Andrea dealing with a little grief demon and the conversations that she has with Father Ignatius. Though the episode's probably the weakest of the season, just the idea of going to the Vatican for no reason at all.
Yeah.
Just to be sent home immediately after landing. The ordeal with the girls and the bats where everything just keeps escalating with a constant screaming. The fight between Leland and Cheryl. The train, using that was a biggie.
Yeah, the fact that the train actually becomes plot relevant.
Yeah, part of the plot.
And the one-off character that they have in that story, the train driver.
Jefferson White is the actor. Yeah, his performance.
Really good.
Really good. Little ticks that you think, oh, that's going to pay off. And it doesn't.
It's kind of like... Jake Gyllenhaal in Prisoners.
Yeah, the blinking.
Yeah, where it's like, this is just this in terms of like fiction. This is not a special character.
Yeah,
but it's just a cop character.
Yeah,
but he's given that character so many little idiosyncrasies that he stays with you.
Absolutely.
And considering that this train conductor, he's just there again. He's just there as an exposition character, basically, and he's there so that like when the plot is concluded, you can see that it's had a positive effect on someone.
Yes,
and yet. Like, I wanted more of that guy.
Yeah, and I've seen him in other things, and that's not him, you know? He tends to play like a Mika kind of characters.
Yeah.
But the stuff he was doing, like a little pinky on his face and everything, that's just this. So, it's great that he's just bringing that to bear on such a small role, ultimately. Dealing with a hole in the basement wall, Timothy's baptism, Leland eating the manager's heart. Then How to Survive a Storm, the season 4 finale, is the episode of the year for me so far.
Okay.
It was thrilling, dynamic, propulsive, a lot of movement. The closest thing to an action episode for this show, really. It reminded me of Breaking Bad's Face Off.
Okay.
In the Cheryl versus Leland thing, and David versus Leland battle, and the shit hitting the fan stakes. I love the atmosphere, the visuals, the remote viewing off, the girls' ordeal in the house next door, the toilet paper, Ben blocking up the sewage. The encounter between Cheryl, Boggs, and the demon, where Boggs' skepticism is pretty definitively shattered.
Yes.
Forever. The cherry on the cake of that was them escaping by climbing up to the next level through where the glass ceiling had been. I loved that. There was a nice sense as well that had she lived, Cheryl and Boggs might have struck up a relationship. I don't know if you got that.
Yeah, I think
or at least
so.
like a good friendship.
Yeah. There was more to them that never came to be.
Yes.
You know?
It was also similar to Face Off in its use of locations. So really using everything the show had established. Characters too. Andrea's confrontation in the storm. The flashbacks to Leland's adolescence. That's really using everything. Kristen and David's declarations of love for each other. And of course the death of Cheryl. In that sense, it reminded me of the season 2 finale of Boardwalk Empire. It's not as funereal or inevitable as Boardwalk, but Jimmy Darmody in Boardwalk Empire was a character that had betrayed the lead character and made a bunch of mistakes and was doing everything he could to rectify them before dying. The setups are different, but in both cases I thought the characters were redeemed. The episode was so good, it makes me a little sad. Because if that was the season finale, how good would a series finale have been if they'd had the time to do a proper one?
Yeah.
And now it's a little bit about the season 5, I guess, the final 4 episodes.
Yeah.
It felt a tiny bit rushed.
Yeah, there definitely is a sense that it's like galloping towards a conclusion.
Yeah, the plot was definitely sped up.
Yeah.
And I dare say they would have continued the tradition of the pop-up books if they'd had more time.
Yeah, I mean, those like Hammer House of Horror title cards, they do fit Evil and its tone.
They're a nice compromise, I think is what we would have to say.
Because I think there were even episodes in the regular series 4 where they just didn't have pop-up books.
Yeah, sometimes they just don't have them.
Yeah,
but they don't replace it with anything though. But I feel like they would have had them with more time. And there were alterations to the George get-up, I think, and it feels like they weren't able to get certain actors back.
Okay.
Like Father Dominic. That's what creates the feeling that it wasn't the plan exactly.
Yeah, well, is this a good time to bring up Patrick Bremmel again?
Yes, we could do. Yeah, go ahead.
It is Patrick Bremmel, right?
I think it's Bramall.
Bramall,
yeah.
Mistake. Yes, so in Colin from Accounts, he is... How would you describe his character in Colin from Accounts?
He's kind of like a middle-aged, doing his best, kind of frustrated by things, socially awkward a bit guy.
Yeah, and obviously Australian because he is native Australian.
Yeah.
And then in Evil, which is the thing that I was exposed to him first in.
Yeah, same.
He's doing his American accent.
Yeah.
And he's not in the show much, but he's like a...
He's regular. He's infrequent but consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, like he's just a good, honest guy, isn't he?
Yes.
Like a good, like, you know...
Which is unusual considering a big part of the show is the burgeoning romance or flirtationship between David and Kristen.
Yeah.
That's how her husband should be a prick.
Yeah, and he's not. Yeah. And the guilt that she feels about that,
yes,
I think is a big reason that like it informs a lot of the way that she interacts with David.
Yeah,
and that's kind of nice. Like you said, like they didn't fall into that trap.
Yeah, and especially again, Australian actor in a comedy series, you'd think, oh, he's an Australian comedian.
Yeah. If
you just saw him in this, you'd think, oh, that's just an American actor that recurs on drama show, you know, he's just an American guy, and he's not, and that was a big surprise. Like, oh, good for him.
Yeah,
he's an actor, you know, he's a proper actor that can do comedy. That's rare, to be fair. You know, a lot of comedy actors are comedians, and I don't think he is. So you got to admire, and him and his wife Harriet Dyer, they did a great speech at the BAFTAs. Yes, not when it didn't win, by the way, but they did a great job. Yeah. But yeah, what did you want to say about Andy?
Well, just that, that character has his own little tragic arc in the show, over the course of the whole thing, because he kind of gets unwillingly roped into this ongoing battle between Leland and everyone.
Yeah.
He's not really aware of like what function he's serving in the grand scheme of things, and then when he's like kind of like makes his way back to his family, he's not like totally in control of his faculties. And yeah, it's quite tragic. And the way that they kind of resolve him is that in the first episode of the final batch, the final 4-episode batch, he's having an affair.
Yes.
He's cheating on Kristen. And then by the end of the episode, he's like gone from the show.
He's gone, yeah. He gets a raw deal, that character.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of whether you want to write him off for being a shit for having an affair, I ascribe that to, like, that guy's brain is scrambled egg.
Well, that's the thing. I think that it wouldn't take much reading into it to kind of explain what's happened to that character.
Vacant look.
Yeah. Because in the second season of the show, I mean, Kristen has an affair in the second season of the show, doesn't he? Doesn't she? Which never really, like...
She has a one-night stand.
Yeah, she has a one-night stand, and that never really, like... Like, the guilt that she carries with her...
Yeah. Well, she's possessed at the time.
She is possessed at the time, But I don't think Andy ever finds out about that, and, you know...
He might not. I think there's a nice little thing where, at the end of that episode, he introduces it to, like, a Tibetan Buddhist ritual, where you write down something, and then you burn it. And he may or may not see it. You kind of see a look on his face.
Right, okay.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So, yeah, I think, like, I've seen people online sort of, like, not criticise the show, but they're like, oh, it's a bit shit that Kristen cheated on Andy.
Right.
And the show forgave her. But now Andy's cheated and he's just, like, out of the picture now.
Right.
Because, I mean, she immediately goes down there and she's like, right, you've never seen my daughters. Yeah. You know, I'm not paying for this place anymore. You sort your own fucking life out. But yeah, when she's possessed in the second season, there's a time when he comes home, because they climb mountains, don't they? That's why he's not really in the show that often, because he's off climbing mountains.
Yeah, in a former life, she was a mountain climber.
Yeah.
And now he runs a business where he kind of he guides people up Everest.
Exactly, yeah. So when he's back from that, they have sex while she's possessed, and she makes him wear a mask. Mm-hmm. And then when he's having that affair in the mental hospital, he's wearing a mask.
Yes.
It's like, oh yeah, there's probably some connection here. I don't know whether it's supposed to imply that he is possessed.
Yes.
Or like you said, his brain is so fucked up from what Leland did to him.
Yeah, there's a type of corruption at play.
Yeah, exactly. But I think because it's dealt with so quickly, and because it's not the focus of the episode, the kind of the woman that might be time traveling is the focus of the episode.
Yeah.
It does feel like on the surface, it does feel like, oh, let's just get rid of Andy.
Yes, and also Kristen receives video from her mother that kind of shows what they were doing to Andy.
Yeah, which never really seems to factor into her decision.
What comes of that is that it gets Leland arrested, but yeah, there's never any sense of like, oh, what do they do to you? We feel with more time they might have dealt with that. And yeah, considering that he's like a really good dad to the girls, even when he's, you know, whatever the fuck they've done, hypnotized, he has the wherewithal to not kill Laura.
Yeah.
And he injects himself. And the thought that he's just gone off now and we'll never see them, especially considering how the show ends.
Yeah.
That is kind of bleak. I never really thought about that element of it. That is kind of bleak. Yeah, he has dealt a raw deal. But yes, these final four, they crystallise my admiration for David. So in season 2, he's tempted by that social justice black church, but chooses to stay where he is with the Catholic Church. And he resists Kristen for the most part. I absolutely loved his little monologue about committing to the church. That was him nailing his colours to the mast. It made me choke up a bit, actually. There's something about it. He's like, I'm sick of all the broken promises in this world. There's ultimately ambiguity over whether he and Kristen will end up together. The final scene offers that if you want it. But the placement of the monologue in the show's last sprint leads me to believe the Kings were saying no.
It's kind of like The Sopranos, isn't it? Like, there's some debate over what the ending of The Sopranos really means.
Yeah.
But there's kind of hints in an earlier episode in that season that, for me, kind of, like, tells you, basically, this is what the ending is implying.
And not to jump to our review of Wise Guys next week, but Wise Guy, rather. David Chase says something at the very end of that that's like, oh, that too, okay. And he even says, like, oh, great, now people are going to say that, oh, he said what the ending was. Like, you did, though.
You did. We now have 2 pieces of evidence.
Yeah, exactly. Also, it doesn't resolve the Lexis question.
Yeah, I guess those are the 2 characters that I feel like get a raw deal from the show. It's Andy and it's Lexis.
I am personally content, and I will admit that maybe a lot of this just comes from charity. I love the show.
Yeah.
And I'm excusing it. But I'm personally content with the explanation, the conclusion they offered with Grace. She says, like, oh, they're going to try and make her do bad things, but if you parent her, she'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right, I'll live with that. It's just that it comes like quite like a season before the ending, so you kind of forget about that. And the show doesn't forget that whole thing with her. Like, she's the only one standing when the other daughters pray. And obviously the crazy lady, played by Anna Klumsky, re-invokes the spectre of Lexis's potential evil. Incidentally, the future that the crazy lady outlines for the daughters. Like David's monologue, its placement in the show suggests to me that that's a vision that you're welcome to accept. Even if it's based on nothing, she isn't just mad.
Yeah.
Equally, the fact that it takes place when it does, which is the kind of thing a show would do in the home stretch. So, like in Happy Valley, when they suggest that Ryan will join the police force.
Yeah.
But then is implicitly contradicted by the reveal that the woman is nuts, is almost a joke playing on that very trope.
Okay.
I might be reading too much into it, but satire has always been an element of the King's work, and that includes satire of television itself. I would refer you to the show and after show in The Good Wife of the fictional...
Oh, God, yeah. Do we ever find out the name of that show?
I think you do. I think when we're introduced to it, we find out its name.
Okay.
But I'll Google it afterwards, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, they cater to veteran TV consumers. It's not a massive deal, but it would have been nice to know how Ben resolved his issue with the gin.
Again, it feels like something that's kind of skipped over. But I guess it's like they're kind of saying like, oh, it's not really... The point is that he's left that life behind.
Yes, and one could ascribe it to the psychological release of no longer doing that job and being this paranoid
And like
world.
you said, the fact that he kind of gives into the tinfoil, he's like sleeping in tinfoil now. Maybe it just went away.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm choosing to believe. Given that the baby was named after Kristen's father, I'm surprised he never ended up playing any role in the show.
Oh, yeah.
No, like, in the end, there was a sense that he'd come into it, but, like, you never meet your dad. And he's around, as far as I know. John Carroll Lynch, Dennis O'Hare, and Richard Kind were nice additions, along with the surprise of the latter beheading Leslie.
Yes.
She got a pretty raw deal.
Yeah. But the show's called Evil. It's going to have to do evil things, isn't it? Yeah.
I like a lot that they readdressed Andrea's past relationship.
Yes.
The girls faking Laura dying. That was great. The doppelgangers, David and Andrea playing the heavenly chord and being surrounded by white light. Andrea searching for the relic and torturing the demon. You actually feel bad for him. He's like, oh no, not the pledge. He's like spraying bleach on him. Leland sobbing over dog videos. The big reveal, this is what you alluded to, that instead of dynastic houses, the 60, the demons, will now represent areas of the brain.
Yeah. That
was great. The goat demon being named Norm in the video call. Norm, you need to...
You're on mute, Norm.
Yeah.
Which is, like, that could be the kind of silly shit.
Yeah.
Like grounding fantastical shit that we'd go, ugh.
Yeah.
But it's just, they made it work.
It made it work.
I think they made it work.
You also get a little hint of the head honcho in that video call, Grey, who one assumes is the devil.
Yeah.
I liked the little cameo in the end from Fenna, the nun in the monastery. I liked that they brought the VR headsets back for one final go-around. So the countdown in the finale in the headsets, besides the obvious finality of that, was the show in a nutshell to me.
Okay.
A feeling of portent that ends up being completely pricked. And tying that in with this satire of technology and modern culture, it's just an ad.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the same vein was the twist that the 60 were never meeting in person because, why would they?
Yeah.
I enjoyed Leland's fate and what you take away from the final scene, which is that Timothy probably is the Antichrist, but hey, that's tomorrow's problem.
And it's a pretty big problem.
It's a pretty big problem.
It needs to be
addressed. But she's like, I'm just going to ignore that.
Yeah.
That final scene, by the way, is obviously a CG location, but they could only do so much, In the end, Evil made me laugh, made me emotional, made me scared, but most significantly for me, made me excited. It's rare that I feel that anymore for film and television, which sounds bleaker than it is. I just mean that thrill you had going into the final episode of Breaking Bad and Succession. Mindhunter is a more perfect show. I'm not saying it's better, incidentally.
No.
And it is a battle between the two, but Evil will probably go down in history as the worst instance of cancellation for me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it definitely wasn't its time.
Absolutely. Stupidly, the Kings talked about, and I read about, and I told you about, what they wanted to do in seasons 5 and 6. It doesn't ruin anything for me because those things do not and cannot exist, but it is a damn shame. But we won't end on a dour note. We got 4 seasons, and they were terrific. If you know what's good for you, try Evil.
Try it.
Right, I think that's it then.
That's it.
We will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.